Thank you.
Everybody please rise.
Dear God, today as the session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in this decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessings on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Thank you. We'll now do the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counsel Noon.
Here.
Mayor Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Cirillo.
Here.
Counsel Conway.
Here.
Counsel Elliott. Here. Counsel Kennedy. Here. Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Mercia.
Here.
Counsel Milanazzo. Here. That's 9 present.
Are there any moments of silence? Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for Gary B. Balza, who was a devoted husband to the late Gloria Balza, who passed away in 2004. Gary proudly joined the United States Air Force, serving in Vietnam and then in Vermont as a Sergeant E4. In Vermont, Gary met the love of his life, Gloria, and they married and moved to Lowell to raise their family. People in Lowell will remember Gary as one of the most dedicated, hard-working Lowell Sun delivery persons, having one of the longest delivery routes in the city. He was a part of the Lowell Telecommunication Corporation, LTC, a pioneer in producing Lowell City Council meetings and school committee meetings as well for many years, where he formed a close friendship with John McDonough. And together they went on, and then city life was brought about. He was an amazing and loving dad to his children, a son, Timothy Balza, and Lisa, his daughter, a loving grandfather to Noah and Isabella. We offer our sympathy to his family, relatives, and many friends. I would also like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for Julia Teresa Nutter. Julia lived in the Centerville section of Lowell most of her life. She was a graduate of Lowell High School and Tewksbury Hospital School of Nursing, and worked at the Tewksbury Hospital various local nursing homes as a private duty nurse. She married George Nutter, who was deceased since 2005. She happened to marry George on her birthday, which was July 9th. She is survived by her 10 children: Kathleen Nutter, Maureen Nutter Dumont, George Nutter, Patrick Nutter, Colleen Nutter, Lisa Nutter, Fred Nutter, and Teresa Ellsworth, as well as school committee man Jerry Nutter, and 13 grandchildren. She was predeceased by her son Paul Nutter. We offer our sympathy to her family, relatives, and many friends. She will be truly missed. And I'd also like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber to all those who have passed away since our last City Council meeting. May they all rest in peace. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. I'd like to offer a moment of silence for Joseph M. Jeffroy, husband of Mary Jeffroy, who is employed at Lowell High School. Joe Jeffroy, a lifelong resident, passed away peacefully on May 25th in Lowell, surrounded by his loving family after a courageous battle with early onset Alzheimer's. He was the husband of Mary Gill Jeffroy, of whom they would have celebrated 42nd wedding anniversary this September. Born in Lowell, August 11, 1953, he was the son of the late Leo and Mary Jeffroy. He received his education in Lowell, in the Lowell school system, graduated from Lowell High School, class of 1972. Joe went on to earn his associate degree in business from Essex Agricultural College. Following in his father's footsteps, Joe entered into the family business of Jeffroy's Service and Towing, located in the Highlands, with his brothers. Over the years, he honed his skills as a master mechanic, and he took great pride in offering the best service around, especially in the Highlands. They were just very well known. In addition to his wife, he is survived by his son Michael Jeffroy and his fiancee Alyssa Finneral. He has brother Richard R. Jeffroy and his wife Deborah, sister-in-law Barbara Jeffroy. He will be sadly missed. Thank you.
Please document Chambers. Thank you. Under mayor's business, I'd like to take a couple out of order. The first one here, we want to honor or introduce the June Veteran of the Month. And that's Judy Fosamas for being named the Walter Bayless Veteran of the Month for the month of 2019. We had a ceremony in the mayor's chambers with her family. But I wanted to make sure that, Judy, I'd like to have you come to the podium. I know you don't want to speak, but she's a 1999 graduate of Lowell High School. She's returned back into the service. You're going into military intelligence, I believe?
Yes.
Just thank you for your service. Like to say hello?
I'd like to thank you, Mayor, and the City of Lowell for acknowledging this type of service. I'd like to thank my family and friends for being here. And again, I appreciate all the acknowledgements from past veterans and to the future ones. Thank you.
You're well deserved. Thank you very much. Great job. Next, we have a brief presentation regarding project citizenship. We have members here, project citizenship.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having Melody and I. Oh. Closer? Okay. Thank you for having us. My name is Hannah. I'm from CMAA. I'm here with Melanie from Project Citizen to talk about our workshop this Saturday, Project Citizenship.
Hi, thank you for having us, Mayor. This is our second annual citizenship workshop in Lowell. It's going to be happening at the Lowell Senior Center on Saturday, June 15th. Project Citizenship is a legal services nonprofit based in Boston, and we've been partnering with CMA for the last couple of years to make sure that these services are available to the citizens of Lowell as well. It's a free workshop, so at the workshop, all the clients will be seated with volunteer attorneys who will fill out their forms for free. Most of the clients qualify for a fee waiver, which means they won't be paying the filing fee for citizenship, and we'll track them through the whole entire process until they're sworn in as U.S. citizens. We partner with CMA, who has such a great reputation in the city, but we're hoping to get the word out to other constituents as well from other ethnic groups in the community. We know this is a very needed service in Lowell as well as all over Massachusetts, and we have flyers to distribute, and also just some basic information about eligibility for citizenship. You have to be 18 years old. You have to be able to read, write, and speak basic English, have a green card for at least 5 years. And if you do qualify for a fee waiver, it's because you're low income. So if you're getting certain public benefits, we can help our clients get that citizenship fee waived. Otherwise, it's $725. Obviously, citizens can vote. They can run for federal office. There's many other benefits that come along with it. They can travel with a U.S. passport, so it's something that we're pushing, especially ahead of the 2020 election, to get more representation in our communities.
Have the candidates already been selected? If anybody heard about this now, could they apply?
Yeah, so we have 50 people registered so far, but we can take way more. It's a group processing model, so we can take as many as show up. So please, if you know any constituents who would be interested, please encourage them to call CMA or call us, and I'll leave the flyers with all the information on how to do that.
Thank you. It's good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Noon.
So, Mayor, this is a great project, and I know that a lot of seniors and low income cannot afford the $725 fee to become citizen, and this project is an awesome project. My question is that this is a one-time, so this is offered during the workshop, and after the workshop, can they contact some of you?
Yes, they can call CMA or call Project Citizen in Boston, and we have workshop every other Friday.
So we have office hours at CMA every other Friday, so people can walk in, get their questions answered, fill out their forms that day as well. This is just our big event, flagship event of the year.
This does apply to all residents, right? Don't have to be Asian, Hispanic, and whatever, right? African,
Yeah.
those who want to become citizens.
Yep,
And,
so you don't have
who
to
are
live in
low
Lowell
income.
either, but obviously we're
Yeah.
gearing it towards Lowell
Yeah, and
residents.
also, we're trying to target all low, but the project system also help with Lawrence, Chelsea, all around. So
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
not
so
just
all of
Lowell.
Massachusetts.
Yes.
Well, thank you. This is an awesome project. I mean, I can afford. I mean, I already become citizen, but if I don't, I'm telling you, $750,
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
a lot of
And-
money
Yeah.
for some.
And,
Thank you.
Ever since being partnership with Project System, CMA are able to help the Khmer community, at least, I believe, 200 application apply for citizenship.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. All right. Next, we have, under the mayor's business, because we have our city auditor leaving us, and I want to open up the discussion, but there are also two motions. First motion by Councilor Conway, request City Council begin the process to fill the position of city auditor. I need a second on that. By Mr. Milanazzo, Councilor Milanazzo. And we also have a motion by Councilor Kennedy.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I'd like to withdraw my motion,
Okay.
as long as there's already another motion and you have it on the agenda, so there's really no need for my motion as well.
Okay.
So I'm happy to withdraw it. 9.4.
All right, thank you. But I've asked the Director of Human Relations, Mary Cowrie, to come here to make a presentation regarding how we advertised the previous request for the city auditor's position. She also researched salaries and general information for this council. Ms. Cowrie?
That on now? I did leave each counselor a little packet that explains the procedure. This is a procedure that has been in place all along. I don't know if you need any changes to it. You can take a look at it. I've also attached a job description, which I can get posted started tomorrow, depending on how many weeks and that. And if these are, if you want to go to the MMA, the MGFOA, the MMAAA, they also have some of the salaries are listed for the surrounding towns and cities. And the last page is the annual salary, and the highlight is the step that the city auditor is on. It's a DHO2.
What's the wish of the council? Councilor Kennedy?
I would move that we proceed in the way that we've done it the past couple of times. Just so advertised. I think, did we give a preference to candidates that were CPAs in the past? Was that?
Some of them were from some of the, candidates that we did receive. And we can note that in the job description if you'd like.
I would move that we put that into the job description as well as a preference. I just think that that's a real good qualification to have for this position. And we've been fortunate enough, I think, for the past several positions to have CPAs in that position. I think it's important going forward.
That's seconded by Councilor Milanazzo.
Yes, I agree with Councilor Kennedy. It is listed in the education and experience, certified public accountant experience preferred. If you want stronger language in that, we can certainly defer it to the Director of Human Relations. But it's in there under education on page 2.
Do you want it strong, or do you want it?
Well, if it's going to be in there, then, and if it's already in there, then I think we're fine.
Okay.
But I would just suggest that we proceed the way with process as we did the process the past couple of times, I think was.
Okay, and the job description is the same as the last time. I didn't know if you wanted to make any changes to it, but the CPA is in there.
Could you explain how long the process took?
It varies. The MMA will keep it up for a month, but we can do as long as you would
What's your
like.
suggestion at this point?
I think we need to move the process very quickly, so I'd say 3 weeks.
Any opinions from the Councilor Milonazo. Councilor Elliott. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Conway had his hand. Councilor Conway.
Do we need a motion to post this, or is it?
I believe we do.
Yeah, I think Councilor Kennedy's motion would suffice. Motion to proceed as we did prior, and add language to a description if necessary. I think that's the motion that's seconded by Councilor Milonazo.
Yes. Councilor Elliott.
I think Councilor Milonazo was before me.
No, I'm all set, thank you.
No, I think we need to move forward. Did you say 3 weeks that in total, or are we going to advertise for 3 weeks? Or, well, before I answer that question, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the auditor, what is your last day here? And the reason why I ask you is, as you know, we're midway through June. The end of the fiscal year is right upon us. So I'm presuming that you're taking a new job July 1st, or?
My last day with the city is actually going to be on the 19th of June.
On the 19th of June?
I start the 24th.
Okay, so I guess either subsequent to putting this in place, we'll need to have an interim auditor put in place by statute. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse. So I think we need to proceed as we have. I think nowadays, I think in the past, it used to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks for posting this. I'm not so sure we need that because these are all being done electronically. So I'd like to suggest we do it for 2 weeks. Get that, get the applications, and then councilors make their, selections, send them to the clerk. I guess I'm just asking I can't recall the process, and I think that once it's posted, do they go to the clerk? And the
No,
clerk
they come down to the HR office.
Okay. So could you just review for us real briefly what the process is? Because we do have some new members here that have never
Sure.
been.
So the HR office will post the position if you want to do it for 2 weeks. It's posted in those 3 places that are listed. It's on the city's website, social media, all the nonprofit groups, in any newspapers that you may want it in, whether it's for 2 to 3 weeks. Once the position closes, all the resumes come into the HR office. Once the position closes, they'll be sent to the city councilors. And then the interviews will be set up with whatever dates that you want to conduct them.
Okay, so what is the earliest that we could do this? Councilors it would close on?
2 weeks from now would be June 26th.
Okay, so June 26th.
I'll get it posted tomorrow, June 12th.
Okay.
Councilor Kennedy also said 3 weeks. I'm just not sure. I understand what you're saying, 2 weeks, but the thing is, we're also getting into the summer, so I'm a little concerned about that.
Look, that's fine. We went through this last time. As long as there's an interim, we need to deal with an interim auditor. We're right at year end. Through you, Mr. Mayor, will you be available, Mr. Perry, for closing out the end of the fiscal year? I mean, who's going to certify documents? Who's going to?
Yeah, the biggest challenge right now is essentially getting FY20 open as of July 1 so the city can continue to run as smoothly as possible. And that's one of my priorities. I've given my staff all my contact information, and they know I'm certainly absolutely willing and committed to work with them to get the next fiscal year open. The hard close of the current fiscal year will take a little while. Typically that happens towards the end of the summer, and that's going to be a little bit more involved, I believe.
Okay.
No, you're right about the interim. Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really think we need 3 weeks on this. I understand that there may be some urgency, but if we have an interim, I would just remind some of the councilors that were here before that we had to do the process 2 times last time. So I think we're better off taking the 3 weeks just to see how many applicants we can get rather than to rush through it and maybe not get enough applicants. And if, I guess I think at other times maybe 4 weeks would be good, but I'm satisfied with the 3 weeks. I just think 2 weeks is not much time at all.
Any other opinions, Councilor Leahy?
Through you to Mary Callery. Where else are we going to add? Is there a couple of websites you said that are popular now?
Sorry. All the social media websites, all the nonprofit groups, the City of Lowell website. We can do MMA, the MGFOA, the MMAAA. And if,
I don't apply for a lot of jobs, but isn't there a new website out there that people look at all the time for?
oh, Indeed,
Yeah, Indeed. It'll
we
go
can put it on
something.
there too.
Okay, and then I don't know what people think about the salary. Do you think we should change that to go like minimum of 100 to 115 so we can get a good person, a good qualified person, or should, I mean, when I look at it first and it starts at 94, it doesn't do anything. So maybe we should have up the minimum and maybe go up to 112, maybe 100 to 112. Do you think that would help entice
There's
anybody
al-
when they look at it?
There's also a stipend involved, $4,500 annually for the retirement board,
Yeah.
just as an FYI.
Okay. Well, I don't know what anybody else thinks.
You want
I
to make
just
that
didn't
into a
know.
motion? Or?
Yeah, well, I'll make a motion that we go from minimum 100 to a maximum of 111 then.
Do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Second.
By Council Kennedy. Do I have a roll call on that?
Council New.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy. Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you.
And you said, Councilor?
Yep, thank you.
I'm sorry, Councilor Cirillo?
Hi, yes. How many languages is this going to be posted in? How many different languages?
Right now, we only have it in English.
Could we have it in Khmer, Spanish, Portuguese? We have a vibrant community, and I want to make sure that this is seen and understood by everyone in the community. So do I need to make a motion that we have this in multiple languages?
Well, I think
I'm sorry, Councilor?
I'm hoping the person needs to be able to speak English.
Yeah, me
Well,
too.
I mean, no disrespect, we can post it, but the person has to be able to read English to communicate in this department.
Yeah, there are bilingual people, trilingual people that might be interested in this position.
I'm sorry, Madam.
Just
City Manager.
quickly, if the council wants to post tomorrow morning, that it wouldn't be possible to do it in 3 languages. We would have to seek out translators to do that for this position. So I don't know how quickly
difficult
you would be able to
is
find that. I do know, Working Cities is doing translations and so forth, but would have to reach out to one of the partners and ask
How
them.
long would that be to actually reach out to our communities?
Well, right now, we reach out to the nonprofits who reach out to the different diversity in the city of Lowell. So we do get a lot of diversity in applying for the positions. So I don't see that it's a problem right now, but I don't know if somebody else has an idea to.
Yeah, the city does do translations through the elections office. We could try and pursue that and see how long that would take. I mean, without inquiring, we could get back to you, but.
Thank you. I would imagine it wouldn't be too long. So do I need to put forth a motion?
Yes.
Or, okay, well, I would like to
Before
put,
you do that, though, I understand what you're saying, but.
Well, hold it, let's do it. If he has to
Before we
do it,
vote.
let's go through the motion, then.
Well, I don't want to do the motion.
Okay,
Well, we're not gonna
before we
debate
go to
that.
the motion, Mr. Makin, well, I understand that we want to be able to reach out, but if the individual is going to apply for this job, they need to, most employees in the city are not bilingual or trilingual. So in my opinion, I don't want to hold this up as a result of posting it in another language when we're very well aware that this language requires to be able to speak, in my opinion, quite fluently English.
Yes, Madam.
And that's not a knock on anything else. Our ballots and those things that people need to understand, fine, but this is a job in the city.
Madam Manager?
Thank you. The solicitor just advised that we could post tomorrow morning and then supplement it with translations when they were available, just to not delay the posting.
That would be great. So could I make that motion to post tomorrow and then have subsequent postings of a few other languages?
Do I have a second for that?
I'll second the motion. I think what the city solicitor is suggesting is that we post the position right away tomorrow, and that we do that in English. And then going forward, to the extent that it is practical and possible, try to get the word out as much as we can in other languages as well. But I think that Councilor Elliott does make a good point in that the final candidates are going to have to speak. We would never hire a candidate that the city council would not be able to communicate with. Therefore, that candidate has to speak English.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And so that candidate would be able to read the notice, the job notice. And I think that's, so that's a good point. But I do think, I seconded the motion because I think that Councilor Cirillo also makes a good point in that it's good to try to get it out to as many people as we can, including minority communities. To the extent that it's practical and possible, I think that we should try and do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think when Mary Colleries mentioned some of the websites, some of the people that the information will go to, and that came from the diversity group. I think we come a long way in terms of job opening and reaching out to diverse populations in our city. That be the nonprofit, CMAA, African centers, and so on and so forth. And those individuals, if they have the loved one or friend or neighbors or somebody who looking for a job of this type, and Councilor Elliott and Councilor Kennedy, and I sympathize with I'm with Councilor Cirillo on a point that we has to be in practice is continue to try to reach as many people, as many diverse community as possible, particularly with the information sharing of what's going on in the city. As far as job application in this level, you really do need somebody who efficient in both the number as well as in the language in order to communicate to the council and to the rest of the community. That said, I think it's rightfully so that we post it because of urgency, because Mr. Berry is leaving us, and I'm sad that he is. But he also make himself available as well in terms of closing and working with his staff, now who still remain to help us in terms of close our book by July 1st. That said, give us time to looking for candidate of his caliber, maybe if lucky, better to do this job, and so that's posted now. And if we need to add a little information to it in terms of not really a job description in a way, it's just FYI to the community say there's an opening, order opening. Just in that language, it should be sufficient in terms of what is the salary and what's the requirement. You don't need to do a full translation of it. It's as a information that is important, informations like when's the trash pickup and whatnot, that need to be translated in multi-language so that to help our residents understand what's going on. Thank you.
Councilor Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to, I believe, the city manager. Who would do this translation? Are we talking about?
Well, the city has, through the elections office, access to individuals who do the translation. So the solicitor is indicating through the elections office.
And what would this cost?
I defer to the solicitor.
I don't have a figure. I certainly can find out first thing in the morning and then send a email to the council regarding the figure. I don't anticipate that it would be terribly costly, and again, we have great partnerships where I think given the goals Again, that would add to the reasonableness of any potential cost out there.
Thank you. I don't necessarily see the reason that we have to have it in multiple languages, where I think it's been pretty clear that the individual that we'll be hiring will have to communicate certainly with the nine counselors. As long as it's not going to hold anything up, because I think it was, I think good points have been made here that we need to get this off the ground as soon as possible. I think that it's certainly time sensitive. So, I mean, I'll vote for the motion. I don't necessarily see why we need it, but as long as it doesn't hold up and we get this going Monday. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. You want a roll call on it, Councilor Kennedy?
Well, we're doing a roll call on the motion first. Is that what you're asking for,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor? Okay, I'll wait then until after.
Roll call. Do you want to read the motion?
Councilor Cirillo, seconded by Councilor Kenny, to provide supplemental language translations in the posting if needed and necessary. Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Councilor Cirillo.
Yes.
Councilor Conway.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy. Councilor Mercia.
No.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
8 yeas.
All right, Councilor Kennedy?
The $4,500 stipend, is that included in the notice, the job notice too? Okay, all right, so that's a good thing. My only final comments were, I think that the city auditor, Brian Perry, has done a great job for the city during the time that he's been here. I've always found him to be very competent, very cooperative, quick to get back. And I'm really sorry that he's leaving. So, and I think it's the city's loss. So hopefully we can get someone of his caliber to fill a position when we've completed this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mayor Samaras. Getting back to Councilor Leahy's motion that we also supported changing the salary. In the FY20 budget, the salary right now is $112,645. So I'm assuming that includes the stipend. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know off the top of my. It does not. It does not. So again, we voted something that's actually less than what we're budgeting for. If you're looking at the 100,000 to 111, so I don't want to. Again, I'll look over to the Director of Human Relations. Again, if it's in the budget for 112,645, what? I would say that we should, keep it with the stipend, the 112 plus the 45, we're like 117. I just want to make sure that the vote that we just took 15 minutes ago doesn't.
Yeah, Madam Manager.
Thank you. It's my understanding from the CFO that it's the retirement board that pays the stipend. It's not paid through through the general fund.
Okay. So again, if we need a minor amendment to Council Leahy's to go to the 113, 100 to 113 as opposed to 111. I'd put, yeah.
Second by Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, I second that. I think Councilman Milonazo makes a real good point. So,
Do you want to have a roll call on that?
Yep.
Okay.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Councilor Cirillo.
Yes.
Councilor Conway.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Okay, we have either 2 weeks, 2 weeks or 3 weeks out on the
3
table.
weeks.
What's, Councilor Milonazo? Okay. You want to have a roll call on the 2 weeks or 3 weeks? How would we?
What's the motion?
Well, we have a motion for, we didn't actually have a motion, did we? So we have 2 weeks out and 3 weeks out. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Make a motion.
For 3 weeks. Second.
Motion by Councilor Leahy for 3 weeks, second by
Second.
Councilor Mercia. Roll call.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Councilor Cirillo.
Yes.
Councilor Conway.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Councilor Milonazo?
Do we have a recommendation to appoint an interim? Again, if Brian's leaving on the, what did you say, the 19th? We don't meet again until the 25th, so I didn't know if we'd have to suspend the rules to get a recommendation either from our current city auditor or from the CFO as to who would be in that position until it's filled.
I concur.
Councilor Elliott?
Well, I concur. I mean, sometimes we've had interims, we've had the acting. Given the fact that we're looking at 3 weeks, it'll be a week before we get them, and then it'll be a couple, we're looking at somewhat of a sustained time period. And
correct.
it is a very, very critical time of the year. So, Mr. Baldwin or Mr. Perry, do you have any recommendations?
Mr. Baldwin?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it would probably be prudent for this council to give us about a week and maybe call a special meeting at some point next week, and then we could have some names to present to you and some discussion about an interim. So that would be before Mr. Perry departs.
Okay. I'll make that form of a motion.
I'll second that.
It's a motion by Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Conway, to allow a week. Have a special meeting. Okay. Councilor Leahy, then Councilor Mercia.
Well, I'll let Councilor Mercia go first.
If I can remember the last time, wasn't it Karen O'Byrne that took over? And she's still in your office, isn't she?
Correct. She is the assistant.
She knows what she's doing. She's been here a heck of a long time to not be new to this. She knows it very well. But then again, I'm not saying to put her there, but she's been tremendous in the past. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy.
I was going to say the same thing. It's our appointment for the auditor, and I would hope that people in the office can step up when asked. You know, if they can't, we're doing something wrong. We need to be training people to move up if they wish to. So I would recommend that we appoint Karen, but I'll wait the week for recommendations.
Do we think that she will
Well, we'd have
take
to
it?
ask her. But.
Well, no, only because I know we've had conversations and it's a lot of work, and, you know, I think we have to ask her
Correct.
first. Through you, Madam Manager,
Yeah, I think that would be prudent. You know, I think there have been conversations at this point. I think that's why we're asking for a week so that there's time to have further conversation with her or come up with Plan B.
I think it would be a positive step. Councilor Conway.
Yeah, I think that's the wise thing to do, because at this particular point, we don't necessarily know the factors that perhaps somebody that we might mention today, they might not want it at this point. So, and I think it gives you people, the CFO and the city manager and the team, to sit down and analyze exactly what should be done, who you should pick, and why. So I certainly applaud the keeping of the week and not naming someone right away.
All set. We pretty much set. Ms. Cowdery, do you want to just go over quickly what has transpired? Make sure we're all in agreement.
We will post it tomorrow, June 12th, for 3 weeks. It will be in the MMA, the MGFOA, the MMAAA. We'll post on Indeed. The standard procedure would be the city's website, all the mailboxes within City Hall, the nonprofits, and the salary will range from 100 to 113. And the CPA preferred, which is already in the job description.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last time that we selected an audit, the interim auditor was Bob Healy, who's no longer with us. However, I think he's still around. And I would not be adverse to appointing him on an interim basis. And if he were to take it, then we wouldn't need the special meeting. If he declines, then we would have the special meeting. But we're talking about just a few weeks. It's not a long-term thing. And I think everybody has a good level of confidence with Mr. Healy, and maybe he would be willing to do that. So I would offer that as a motion.
Okay, so, do I have a second? By Councilor Cirillo?
All right, I just want to add, I understand what you're saying, but I would offer it to our employees first, to give them the opportunity, because they work for us down in the office. I would give them the opportunity first. If it gets declined, I wouldn't be, I would reach out to someone else. But I think we should offer it to people in the office first. That would be my suggestion.
I would agree, Mr. Mayor, through you. I would agree with you, Councilor Leahy, in most instances, but I'm pretty certain that there is nobody in the office that would be willing to take it this time. And I think maybe that may have been the case last time, which may have been the reason that that Mr. Healy was selected last time.
Do we want to have a roll call on that? In other words, basically what you're saying, if they come in, there's no recommendation for someone in that office to take over.
Basically, what the motion would say is that if Mr. Healy is willing to do it on an interim basis for a few weeks to fill that position, that this council would be in agreement with doing that. If he turns it down and we need to select somebody else, then we would have a special meeting to select somebody else to do the position.
Could I just offer one other thing? We're all working, right? There's people down in the office now. Could we just, I would feel better. My vote's going to be to hire someone from within. So we could very easily send someone down there, ask her if she's willing to step up for 3 weeks, and if not, then we have our answer. That's what we're here for. So.
Councilor Newland and Councilor Elliott.
Let leave it 1 week. It's called special meeting. By that time, we will know for certain who wanted and who we should offer to, right? So 1 week, it's called special meeting, and everyone happy at the end of the 1 week. Thank you.
Oh, for the 1 week. Yeah. Councilor Elliott.
Move the question.
Move the question. Okay.
Questions on the Healy motion? Councilor New.
I would wait for 1 week.
That a no?
No.
Mayor Samaras.
No.
Councilor Cirillo.
Yes.
Councilor Conway.
No.
Councilor Elliott.
No.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
No.
Councilor Mercier.
No.
Councilor Milonazo.
No.
2 yeas.
Okay. But we pretty much have a plan of action if that doesn't take place. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. We have to, Councilor Mercier, we have to go into the hearings. I'm sorry. It's after 7:18. All right, so first of all, we have the minutes of the Technology and Utilities Subcommittee of May 28th and the City Council meeting of May 28th. I need a motion to accept and place on file.
So move.
Cirillo, second by Councilor Noon. We have the general public hearing. The first one, the ordinance to amend zoning extending the district include all 264 and 266 Plain Street and 58 Montreal Street.
Thank you.
We're going to continue.
You got to open it first and continue the motion.
Open the hearing for those who want to speak in favor. Open the hearing. Close.
Thank you, darling.
All right. I'm going to close that.
Entertain a motion to continue with the June 25th.
All right. I'd like to entertain a motion to continue the matter till June 25th, 7 p.m. by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Milonazo. Thank you. Next, we have a vote to authorize the budget appropriation. Open the hearing. For those who want to speak in favor. Those who want to speak in favor. The portion is closed. Then the motion, anybody want to speak in opposition? 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 That portion is closed. I need a motion to adopt by Councilor Conway, second by Councilor Milonazo. Roll call.
This is the budget. This is the budget.
Yeah.
Council, who was it, Conway?
Yes. And Council.
Council Moon.
What's the motion again?
Motion
To approve the FY20
Approve
budget.
FY20.
Are we going to discuss it then?
It's up to you.
All right, we're not going to discuss the budget?
That's Council Elliott.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about it
Yeah.
before the roll call.
Madam Manager.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. 2 weeks ago, we did have a presentation on the FY20 budget by the CFO, Connor Baldwin. We have here tonight the budget itself for hearing. Mr. Baldwin, we can certainly go over some of the highlights of what was presented 2 weeks ago, just to refresh. And there's also a presentation, two other presentations that, though not directly on the budget, one is on the capital plan that we did not make 2 weeks ago, but are prepared to make tonight, which is a vote that's coming further on, and also the state of the city, which again, not directly on the budget, but gives the council relevant information, some of which is contained in the budget. So if it is the wish of the body, Mr. Baldwin can go over the highlights of the budget that we're asking for approval tonight.
Council Elliott.
No, I'm not asking that. I just want to talk generally about the budget. And you know, years past, we would spend Saturdays and Sunday or multiple days, but I just want the folks at home to know why deliberations are not that lengthy, because this is the budget now. And I've gone through it in great depth, and questions that we would normally ask are answered. The analysis on debt, on stabilization, on all of the financial issues that I will speak briefly about are included in here. I think it's a very sound budget. So I think that's the first point I wanted to make. From a financial perspective, we continue, and Mr. Baldwin just let me know, notified me tonight, we continue to have the strongest bond rating that the city, as long as I have been there, continues to maintain, and that is because of our strong stabilization. And the trend that our stabilization sees, we have excess levy capacity, and we do our best to keep taxes down. And I think this budget does a very good job. As was explained last week, I know I was not here, but there are fixed costs in this budget that are completely out of the city's control, and it's frustrating because we have adopted resolutions on charter schools, which we see significant increases. The state does not fully fund its public school education, and that's a discussion that we've had in the past. I'm sure we'll have it again. I guess the pension assessment, I look, it's $35 million. That's one. I'd like that, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, just ask questions as I just make my statements.
Correct.
We have made significant increases, and I know that it has to be fully funded by 2032, but what can be done, if anything can be done, on the city's pension assessment, not only this year, but, forthcoming? I know PARAC, which is a state agency that sets that standard, but we've taken some pretty big hits for the pension system, and that's one of the impacts on the budget that is significant, because if you look line item by line item, they're essentially in this budget, expenses are level funded. We fund the raises for the employees at 2%, and after that, I can't find anything else of significance. So, we've made progress on our electricity, certainly on our health insurance, where we used to see multi-million-dollar increases. But can I just go back to the pension assessment, Connor? And I did see the forecast, and it's rather bleak, if you will, that we continue to have this cost that it's not within our control.
Sure. Thank you, Councilor. The pension liability is one of the two big overhanging financial challenges for the city, the other being other post-employment benefits, OPEB. The city is on a funding schedule to meet the pension obligation by 2036. We had to push it back a few years ago, and there are not many direct things that the council is able to do to affect that, other than dedicating an additional appropriation, which is a very challenging thing to do in a budget as lean as the City of Lowell's budget. Some change to our funding schedule may come depending on the investment performance. The lion's share of the city's pension assessments are pension investments are with PERAC, and they control at the state level the portfolio. It's about every other year or so that there is an actuarial update of the pension assessment, which oftentimes changes the funding schedule. Most times, if performance in the fund is down, then the total liability will grow. So when we get a new assessment, I think we maybe do next year, there will be a revision to our total liability. However, that's a long way of saying that it's one of two major challenges for the city. The other being OPEB, and I would argue that the city is a leader in addressing that challenge. Now, years ago, the council created an OPEB trust fund and seeded that with the savings that were achieved by moving to the GIC, the city's share of the savings. Since that time, the city has invested that money. It was $7.8 million when it started. It's grown to over $9 million, which, when you stack that up with the $600 million OPEB liability, is a drop in the bucket on paper, but it's more than what a lot of communities are doing. This council also made an appropriation from free cash this year, consistent with the newly established OPEB policy, into the trust, and there's an appropriation in the FY20 budget to make a dedicated appropriation into the OPEB trust. This is something that the ratings agencies, Moody's, S&P, and Fitch, look very favorably upon, and it is part of the city's strategy to affect our credit rating.
Thank you. I appreciate that explanation, especially for the residents at home watching, because I think it's important to explain why we get this assessment. So the other items I just wanted to mention was we mentioned our stabilization. It's at its highest level ever. It's $1 million increase from last year. Our free cash, it's not as high as it once was, but we're not in a negative position. The other aspect is, before we close the books on the recap sheet, we try to reduce our expenses by any excess revenue that we have. So that was sort of the bad news, the charter school. And by the way, the charter schools, our assessment for the city of Lowell is $26.5 million. We get a reimbursed from the state of about approximately $4 million. We pick up the rest. And that's, I understand that, that it's public education, we have to fund it. But if it's public education, the state has got to do something, because we're drowning in I would say, those costs. So I think it's a very good budget. If you look at the revenue streams, they're conservative. Look at building permits and the estimates. Our overlay is stable. I see it's at about 1.1 million. That's a good sign that we're not overvaluing property. If you look back to FY16, it was at 1.6. So, and that money, just if there are no abatements at the appellate tax board, then that money comes back to the general fund. Local receipts, I had a question, what is included? Because if you look 2015, Mr. Baldwin, it was 25 million. In 2019, we're looking at 68.7. What, excuse me, what is included in those? That's on section 3-7.
So generally, Councillor, the local receipts category is all taxes other than those from the tax levy, which is what most folks would think of, your personal property and real estate taxes, it's motor vehicle excise taxes is a big component of that category. Licenses and permits, so the building permits that you mentioned, other types of licenses that the city issues, fees related to those are part of the local receipts category. One of the things that's worth mentioning is the city continues to be conservative with our estimation of receipts for the local option on recreational marijuana. We are yet to estimate an amount for that because we are yet to have a full fiscal year's worth of collections on the one that is open now. This past year, when we were setting the tax rate, that was an advisory that we heard from the Department of Revenue loud and clear that a lot of communities were estimating the receipts related to the local option excise in advance of any of their stores opening. And the Department of Revenue is a very conservative agency, so they look favorably upon us doing that. And those are some of the big categories that make up the local receipts.
Okay, I suspected that increase was, it's rolled into one number, which makes some sense. So I have lots more to say, but I will say that the schedules, the debt schedules, as we prepare for the high school, I think that's important to note. It's only 2.9% of the in total spending on the city side, so it's important that we continue to invest in the city and the capital plan that we'll talk about next. So I'll stop here, but I appreciate the information because this budget is a reflection of the stability that the city has. It has forecasts on where we're going, so we can keep taxes as low. The rate continues to go down, valuations continue to go up, and we're at 2%. We don't want to raise taxes. I certainly don't want to, but it really, again, it's a lean budget. I do appreciate the FTE attachment or appendix this time. It appears that the only new positions are those of firefighters, which we received a grant for a number of years ago, the substance abuse outreach person, and that individual that we hired, the needle, the syringe person that picks up the syringes. So just for the folks at home, there's not a lot of fat in this budget. We continue to, at the end of the year, and I commend you, Madam Manager. I know midway through the year, your team looks at the financial situation mid-year, and only necessary positions are hired, only necessary purchases are, which is why we have free cash at the end of the year. So I appreciate all the effort that's gone into this, all the explanation, because it's very thorough, and it is online, and it's easy, it's readable for folks that want to take a look at just about everything from roads being paved to economic development, public safety. So thank you for the time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Connor Baldwin, and I believe the budget is very sound. It's very hard to say that we could cut here or there, and I'm sure we could, but it'd be like peanuts compared to what we really should do. But I know that from time to time, we invest our money in this city hall. Do we not invest our money? Okay, and how often do we do that? When the option is available?
The city treasurer is always looking out for the best return rates on our investments. So, we are restricted in what types of investments we can make. We have to maintain a certain level of liquidity with the funds. We're always looking to three major categories when making investments: safety, liquidity, and the yield. Our performance in terms of investment returns has been good over the past few years. We invest general fund monies, as well as the city has a variety of trust funds that are invested, as well as the OPEB trust, which I mentioned previously.
So do we invest in a money market mutual fund? Because I'm asking that because from what I'm understanding, it's the largest possible return?
The MMDT?
Yes.
That is something that the new city treasurer and I are discussing in terms of new opportunities for the city to increase our return on investments.
And having said that, how much do we have applied to this? How do we do this? Like, do we take a certain amount of money and see how much we can get back for it? How does that work?
The city treasurer will move funds into certain bank accounts allowed, or certain types of accounts.
And when she does that, does she tell you about it as well?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not just one person that
It
does
does not
that.
happen in a vacuum. The treasurer is the custodian of funds by statute, but we have a very good financial team here, and everything is filtered up in a team setting and back through the city manager's office.
Sure, that's good to know. And everything about the budget seemed to be right on par, except I'm a little bit disappointed with seeing 15 vacant police officer slots that are vacant. Are we intending to fill that anytime soon? Because
Well, that's in part because of retirements and also classes. We've been running a full complement of class at the academy for the past 2 years. We're running one right now, but sometimes not all make it through. So we're doing our best each year to fill those vacancies. But it largely is because of retirements. It's not because we're not trying to fill them.
because I like to keep up to the full complement of what we promise the public for public safety. That to me is number one when we talk about the city of Lowell and what we can do and what we hear from our constituents, and they're right on top of public safety. And when I see 15 vacancies, I know it's through attrition, retirement. I just get a little bit nervous because I like to see that people are
We agree
on
completely,
board.
and I believe we have 15 in the current academy class,
good.
something like that.
Okay.
So we are trying
As
to
long as
replace the
we're on it,
retirees.
sure. Okay, thank you so much.
You all set?
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Cirillo?
Yes, I wanted to say this is no small task for the city manager and Connor and your team, and I just want to thank you for doing such a great job. Thank you.
Councilor Conway?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to echo what my colleagues have said, that first of all, I want to thank Connor Baldwin and his staff, I think under the guidance of the city manager, for doing a great job with this budget. It certainly answers a lot of questions. It's not necessarily my forte, but looking at this, I understood it, so I think that it was well presented. It certainly shows what I see as a very lean budget, and having said that, I think going forward, it's imperative that we continue to maximize our resources and especially our partnerships to get the best bang for the buck. Because I know that, the taxpayers, they work very hard for that money, and again, I think we have to utilize it in the most effective way. I think we need also to continue to explore, as a city council and also administration, ways that we can stretch that taxpayer's dollar and yet continue to maintain a very high level of services. It's easy to come up with ideas and suggestions that will cost money, but I think what's extremely important is that we need to concentrate and explore ideas collectively that will save money for the city. We're very fortunate. We take a look and we take a look at that rating that we have. It's a AA minus, I believe, and that's been consistent. So again, I applaud individuals like Connor and your team and the city manager for that. I also I'm a little cautious. I think we should be cautious with the grant jobs going forward, because I think it's important to get these grants, but the fact is, can we afford to pick up the job after the grant? Now, the exception, as far as I'm concerned, would be public safety when we're talking about police officers and firefighters. I think that's something that we need to, should we say, bend that rule. And perhaps I think that, we do talk about grants, and I don't know if the grant writers, should we say, have reached out to, which I'm sure they have, but maybe explore in a little bit more detail if there's any grants available for a municipality like ours in the corporate world and also in foundations. I think it's also imperative, like any organization, to reach out to its staff and ask for input from the staff, because these are the individuals that work each and every day at their specific job, and who would know better than perhaps to come up with cost-saving ideas going forward. So again, I congratulate the administration for doing a great job in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, Councilor Newland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that this budget is lean and reasonable. I noticed that last year's the budget is roughly $361 million, and this year it go up almost $11 million. I just wonder if Connor can, for those who are behind me and those who are at home, as to what's some of the reason for those $11 million increase this year from last year. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think that some of the major drivers we've touched on a little bit. There's a natural increase associated with collective bargaining agreements and the costs associated with personnel in the city. But the big challenges continue to be the fixed costs, like the pension assessment, nearly $2 million this year, the net increase to the charter school assessment, as well as, and we've talked at length about this in the past, the solid waste and recycling cost. That this is the first year, because the contract year kind of straddles the fiscal year. It's a January to December contract, so we're absorbing some of what will be a larger hit in future years. As well as other fixed costs like debt service or loss of grants. The debt service increase is associated with this. The city's been very aggressive in our capital plan. I think you can see the results of that in the condition of roads, as well as some of the park improvements and other types of projects that have been funded through the capital plan. The debt service budget related to those capital projects is paid from the general fund. It's like the payback on a mortgage. And it's not to a level where it's at a historic high, because we're always, and we'll talk more about our debt strategy in the capital plan presentation, but the city is constantly trying to layer on debt somewhat equivalent to the debt that is coming off associated with projects that have been fully paid back in terms of the borrowing. So those are some of the major fiscal drivers this year associated with that year-over-year increase.
Thank you for the education.
All set, Councilor? Councilor Leahy?
You're all set.
Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager. So a couple of my questions, I won't go over what everyone else said, but the projects that I've been interested in is, public works. So where are we with the reorganization? And a couple things that concern me are like Mark Young. Mr. Young's been doing two jobs. It was important years ago to have a director of water and director of wastewater. So we haven't filled one position. He's been doing that. Some of the other positions, like over at wastewater, the electrician, we had someone retire, and that was a big issue a few years ago, and I didn't know where we are with that. And just in general, the whole reorganization, we're trying to get, more effective work out of everybody. Just one other thing, is there any discussion about iPads, the use of iPads for foremen and things like that, so that you know, when the guys get in at 7, if someone doesn't come in until 8, they should have their iPad so they know where to go, what to do. They can look up parts that they may need. You know, we've been talking about these things. So is some of this incorporated in the budget?
So the budget does not contain reorganization per se. When it comes to the DPW, Commissioner Snow, who came on a few months ago and has had the new superintendent of parks who just recently started, the new streets division, again, recently started. I think in conversations with the commissioner, he wants to give the new people time to get their feet on the ground and then revisit these issues. I will say that it does appear that those divisions, certainly parks and streets, early signs are that they are working very well. So, but we will continue to look in terms of more efficiencies, including discussing other types of opportunities for better communication. So as far as water and wastewater, we have been meeting on that in terms of following up on some of the recommendations that were put forth in the Hazen report that was done a ways back. You know, have met with Mark Young, with actually Commissioner Ralph Snow and others, and we are moving forward, and there are a couple of other options that we are exploring right now. So I don't know whether you have anything to add on that portion. But as far as the budget before you, it doesn't contain any major reorganization of either DPW or water, wastewater, but we are working in that way to try and get more efficiencies and a better product.
Okay. I think I counted 6 code enforcement inspectors, and I didn't know, you know, is there any plans? I would like to beef that department up. So are there any plans for that? And again, it can be more efficiencies with use of iPads or better communication between supervisors but you know, that's been a thorn in our side for the last few years, and we really need to be, I think we can be more efficient. The goal isn't really to make more money off that, but I think we are passing up some opportunity in that department on collecting fines, enforcement, and I think that needs to be a priority. The other thing is the high school again. I thought there might be somebody here from the school department, but they seem to be happy with their budget. It's no communication, right, from the school department?
We haven't.
Okay.
I don't believe we've had any communication regarding their budget.
Okay. But again, with the physical plants, you know, is there money in the budget? How are we going to be more efficient with that? How are we going to, is there more money set aside for ongoing repairs as we prepare to build the new high school?
Talk about ongoing repairs at the existing high school. Yes,
Yeah.
we have been meeting regularly. Obviously, as you can see, there's money in this budget for those ongoing repairs, and I think it's part of the capital plan as well. But we have obviously invested in the roof over there. We've invested significantly in the heating system. We are continuing to do that. Had meetings yesterday over next steps, specifically in and around the high school, and how we are going to make certain that we're providing adequate services throughout the duration of the construction until the new high school is completed. So that is all part of working with DPW, looking at outside contractors where necessary to achieve some of the necessary repairs.
Okay. There's been a lot of talk this week. I haven't seen any of it myself physically or gone over to the high school, but again, there's stuff circulating that with the construction, that there's leaks and tiles falling, and I don't know the truth of it, but I mean, it just seems like, you know, it's not news. We have a custodial staff over there, so I don't know what they're doing. If a tile falls, it should be picked up. So,
Yeah,
you know, there's a lot of things going on that it just gives us a black eye, and there's no reason for it.
Right. So obviously the city is putting a new roof on the 1922 building. That's been going on for several months. We are doing it because we had no choice. We had to put on the new roof now because the condition was so poor. And so we are putting on a brand new roof to eliminate any of those issues that had to do with leaking. Last week, we had a period of some pretty heavy rain, and it was at that point that the contractor who, in the area that they are repairing, was moving some masonry, and there was a tear in the old roof. So they repaired that. I guess why it wasn't cleaned up inside immediately, but it is something that's going to be completely renovated, and the roof is replaced. And that work we expect to be finished this summer. So there will be a brand new roof, and the ongoing issues that truly that roof was way beyond its useful life.
Oh, yeah,
So.
yeah. Okay. I mean, I think it's a good budget. It's, gets more complicated as the years go on. I appreciate the effort that everybody put into it. I just want to make sure that we're still, and I know we are, but I want to make sure that we're still focusing on efficiencies within the departments. We've got to find better ways to be handling our work orders. And one last thing, as far as I know, we're working with the negotiations for different rents or whatever, but how are we doing with moving the fire department out of Mammoth Road and that whole reorganization? Is that moving along?
Yeah, we are continuing to seek space to put the health department into new space in the downtown. That's what we did go out for bid for, and that process is still ongoing. Okay. The idea was to then, once the health department has moved downtown, to move the fire safety prevention out of Mammoth Road and into the health department space. So we're very optimistic that we'll be able to accomplish that in the up and coming months.
Okay. And I
know they've been in that space on Mammoth Road, very patient for a long time. But we have been in discussions with them of them moving to the health department, and they're very satisfied with that space as suiting their needs.
Okay. I just want to make sure, I know we have school repairs, we have municipal building repairs at the firehouses, the police station, probably around here, but I just want to make sure that, as we go forward with this reorganization, that, if you want to work here, you need to do your job. And we have to help people do their job to do a better job. So whether that's, new policies, new equipment, iPads, things like that, we really got to make some headway in this year. And I'm hoping that there's some room in the budget to allow that. So thank you for your effort. Everything looks good. It's not easy projects. I appreciate your effort. Thank you.
Milazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, an outstanding job on putting the budget presentation together, so thank you, Madam Manager. Thank you, Connor Baldwin, and others involved. A lot of my questions were answered on the floor this evening, as well as the one-on-one that I did have with Connor. But I think it's important that the viewing audience knows that not only are we given numbers, income and expenses, we're also given performance benchmarks. And I think that when you look at a budget like this, close to 375 pages, that there are performance benchmarks on public safety and on police, on education and financial management, where we scored 100%. So again, congratulations on the good work. Over the time I've been on this council, since Connor came on board, it's made his approach to providing us the budget information made our job, I'll just speak for myself, my job easier, because all the information is in front of us, and we're not, as Councilor Elliott mentioned before, that we used to have, Friday and Saturday sessions. We don't have to go through that anymore because it's all here and based on performance measurements. So again, I'm very happy with the budget again this year, and again, kudos to the team that put this together. So thank you.
All set? Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During my time on the council, the budget document itself seems to get bigger and bigger every year, so that for the casual observer, they may wonder why a document like this, everybody's referring to it as a lean budget, because it seems like it's anything but lean. But I think that those of us who have gone through it appreciate the fact that it is filled with a lot of information and analysis on how the city is going to, how the city has been and how it's going for the next year. So I would also like to commend the city manager and Connor Baldwin on an excellent job on the budget this year. I do have one question, and that is when we were talking about reorganization a few minutes ago, the way that the public works in the city and the school department's maintenance department interact does not work. And I think everybody recognizes that, and has not worked for some time. And it was my understanding that we were going to look at possibly reorganization or even melding together those two departments so that they could be a lot more efficient. I think that the city is getting shortchanged in the amount of work hours that are being done by the employees because of the current arrangement there. And so my question is, have we made any progress in that regard? And what is that progress? So what are we going to do about that going forward?
Madam Manager?
Thank you. Thank you through you to the council in answer to Councilor Kennedy's question. This year has been a very difficult one when it came to schools and condition of the schools, and particularly the physical plants. And obviously for a good part of the year, the acting or interim superintendent was dealing with a plate full. We met almost every week about ongoing issues. We were not able to get to the point of what can we do going forward. We actually have a meeting coming up with both the acting and the new superintendent to deal with building issues. We were hoping to have it this week, but it is going to possibly get scheduled next week. So that is a very important ongoing discussion in terms of responsibilities and how we're going to make this work and how we can make it efficient. And so, but this year it has been really a function of just trying to deal with just immediate emergencies on a nearly daily basis. So, we're hopeful some of the steps that we've put in place, especially dealing with some of the more egregious conditions, will help going forward and give us some bandwidth to look at the whole matter. The applications that we put in with the MSBA for the accelerated repair for some boilers and the 80% reimbursement on some of these projects, we're very optimistic. The MSBA is going to vote on our applications on June 26th. And so we hope to come back to you in the beginning of July with good news that we've been approved, at least for some of those projects. And that's, again, a step in the right direction. And we intend to apply every single year to those matters. And those really take up so much time of our staff and DPW staff that if we can get systems up and new and replaced in our schools and then have a much more thorough and thoughtful approach as we're looking at preventative maintenance and ongoing issues, I think it will make our jobs and our conversations much more productive than rather just responding to emergencies every single day.
Good. Thank you. And my last question, Mr. Mayor, I guess probably is to you. The school department's budget, how far are they along? Should the process be completed shortly?
The budget was complete, but we're now waiting for the Senate's report as to the funding.
Okay.
Whether we resolved it based on $10 million, the House bill, funding for the school department. But we're looking at what will happen if we get the $13 million or the $3 million extra.
So is the school department's budget based on the House numbers or the Senate numbers?
House numbers, right?
House numbers, okay. Yes. Thank you.
And with a priority list of what will happen if we get that increase. That'll be made aware. You'll be made aware of that, very soon. Okay. Anyone else? Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple more questions or notes. I'm a little concerned, as I'm sure you are, Madam Manager, on the payment in lieu of taxes. Back in FY16, we were getting about 1.1 million, and this year the budget reflects a little over $450,000. I know some of that perhaps was probably from the NL contribution they made. I'm not sure, since they've gone to a property assessment or vice versa. Is there an explanation behind that? That's almost a $700,000 revenue. I mean, like you, I like to look at the revenues, so you don't have shortfalls, and they are conservative. But why is that?
The 1 year, Counselor, of over $1 million in receipts in that category was associated with the Enel settlement. So there was a payment associated with it, and then pursuant to the rules of the Department of Revenue, it had to be converted into a tax-like payment, so it's no longer in the same category. We've become much more conservative with the pilot payments. I think the ones that are accounted for in that category, there's a range of not-for-profits that make voluntary payments, few and small in dollar value, relatively speaking, but then there's the Housing Authority that makes payments to the city in the pilot category. It's something that this body has discussed previously. It's a voluntary payment in terms of the university. There was a strategic master plan signed between the city and the university where there are payments included in those agreement. One for the Tiger Bridges. It's accounted for in a different revenue category, so it doesn't show in pilot, although it's a pilot-like payment, as well as the contribution for repairs to the Lower Locks garage. There is a payment that the university makes to the city annually.
Okay, good, thank you. That's helpful. And equally as important is along those same lines is that there continues to be property growth, property valuation. I know for some time there was, concerns that the university was taking a lot of property. It was coming off the tax rolls, which is altogether true, but we do continue to see a trend of, $8.1 billion in real property valuation versus $7.6 billion last year. I think that's a good trend as well, including an additional $1.5 million in new growth. Another sign of good economic prosperity here. So those are the only other two questions. And just on the stabilization, I was asked earlier during the week, Connor, we are using $3.2 million of stabilization funds, which is at its, as I mentioned earlier, it's at its, all-time high of 11.7. Can you just explain? I understand it, but rather than we're borrowing a little bit from Peter to pay Paul, but the reasoning behind that is because we don't put it on the tax rate. It's, we're using the stabilization, and then at year-end close, we're using unreserved fund balance and other obligations to pay that off so the levy doesn't go up. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct, Councillor. The vote that the council will take as part of the appropriation order includes an amount that is sort of like a not to exceed figure. It is an authorization up to that amount. Each year as we get closer to the recap time in the fall when the tax rate is set, we have a better number and are always trying to need to appropriate less, and then whatever the actual appropriation is, the first place that the free cash total goes is to replenish that reserve balance.
Okay, good, thank you. I think it's important. It's not a risk, in my opinion. If we looked at our free cash trend, I believe it's good sound tax policy, quite frankly, because we're not raising taxes that we can use other funds to pay off obligations that we have. So that was just the last point. And we're not taxing to our capacity. We have $19 million, and it's a testimony to this administration, the council, and others that we don't go to the full 2.5 on a yearly basis, unlike other communities who are faced with overrides. So I believe our conservative approach to delivering services is a reflection of that $19 million in excess levy capacity. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Leahy.
I just wanted to add one other thing before we pass this. In what Councilor Elliott brought up, the pilot programs again. I think that's something that needs to be discussed again and brought up. The resources that some of these establishments use in the city are just getting to be too much. And I think that this is the year that the council has a serious conversation and really tries to demand something. It's just too much, the resources that go out to the university, the hospital, something needs to give this year. And I think that wherever the discussion goes, but I think we need to have that. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'd like to also say that I want to thank the city manager and Connor Baldwin for really a tight budget, a good budget, but it's a well-illustrated budget. But also, while watching how the dollars are spent, we're still dealing with paving the streets, the parks, building repair. We're doing some very important, we're taking care of some very important issues in the city. I just have one question. I think most city councils at one time or another have talked about safety equipment for both police and fire. I did call you, Connor, this afternoon about the issue of, like, the past several years, we haven't bought a new fire truck. And I just want to be able to explain to the public, how do we deal with issues like, it's a capital investment, but the thing is, it's part of the budget. How do we repair or buy new buses, new fire trucks to replace the trucks that really need to be replaced at this point?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Items like fire apparatus or, the senior center bus, other DPW vehicles, other large pieces of equipment are funded through the capital loan order and the capital budget, which we'll discuss in more detail as we get to that portion of the agenda. In this year's capital plan authorization, and we'll discuss this in a little bit more detail, there is funding proposed for a new fire engine, $580,000, and it's been a few years since we've been able to purchase another piece of apparatus. Those are very large expenses. The fire engines are in that range. The ladders run sometimes over $1 million, and so it is a large expense. In terms of other safety equipment, last year this council approved the capital loan order that included funding for turnout gear, as well as a new appropriation in the operating budget for turnout gear so that the fire department has the resources to try to get on schedule to be able to replace equipment. This council has also funded washing machine extractors to clean the turnout gear. And I see the chief is here who may be able to better explain some of the efforts.
Sure, thank you. Yes, we were able to purchase some new turnout gear over the last few years. We were able to purchase 86 sets 2 years ago, 20 sets this year, and with the grant that we got last year, as well as a match from the city, we'll be able to purchase 152 new sets. So each firefighter will have 2 sets of turnout gear. And also we're able to purchase 8 washing machine extractors, 1 for each station, so that we can keep our gear clean after a fire. And those 2 things will help combat the problem of a high cancer rate in the fire service. As far as our trucks, we do have 3 trucks that are a little bit newer. We have 4 that are kind of mid-range, and we have 4 or 5 that are quite old, up to 22 years old. And some of our spare trucks are 25 years old. They break down frequently. They're in pretty tough condition. So this appropriation for a new truck would help that cause quite a bit.
Chief, I'm sorry, but I'm just concerned, as I've stated before, and I think every councilor has stated at some point, some issue about safety equipment. And the fire trucks are very important to meet the emergency needs. I mean, is there other planning that should take place, in other words, in these budget procedures? Because I have to commend the city manager and Connor Baldwin for keeping a very tight budget, but at the same time, there are certain expenditures that we have to make. And that's, Mr. Baldwin, that's my concern is, what other type of planning can we have to anticipate dealing with those type of costs?
If I may, this year we also applied for an AFG grant to purchase 2 more engines, and if we're successful, we'll get 90% of the funding for that as well. So we're hopeful we can secure an AFG grant, and if we could stay on a pace to replace 1 engine per year, we'd be in pretty good shape. Our oldest truck would be 13 years old, And if we can keep on that pace, we'll be in a little bit better shape than we are now.
That's what I would like to see. I mean, just how do we go about it? Grants are one thing, but as Councilor Conway talked about, in grants we can hope, but the things at some point you have to pay for it. And so if grants don't make it, what other plans do we anticipate in dealing with that? Mr. Baldwin?
I think you're exactly right, Mr. Mayor, and grant opportunities like the chief mentioned are one way to ease the burden on the tax levy. There are other possibilities that the city is currently working on with planning and development and the fire department to use CDBG money, which is another available source. However, it's tied to certain income eligible neighborhoods. So the piece of apparatus needs to be located within certain boundaries. We think we may be successful in securing that this year. And if that is true, then we would be able to purchase 2 pieces of fire equipment this year. But I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
Thank you.
And if I may, another thing Mr. Baldwin and I had discussed was looking at possible leasing opportunities in the future. And we may be able to save a little bit of money that way.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any further questions? All right, we have a motion on the floor to accept the budget of $3,372,044,456. Need a motion to...
So moved.
Okay, roll call.
Motion was by Conway, seconded by Council Milonazo. Council Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, I did want to just take an opportunity to say I appreciate the support of the council for this budget. I appreciate the kind words, but in terms of the efforts, but I do want to acknowledge and credit Connor Baldwin for bringing this budget in and working diligently on this budget all year long. I mentioned 2 weeks ago he's been doing it really solo because of staffing, and he has done a yeoman's work on this. So I want to credit him, and I know he's enlisted others in the cause, and Karen Moynihan and others who have helped him do this. But without a deputy CFO or other personnel that he's had in the past, I did want to thank him for an outstanding job.
All right, thank you. All right, next we have the loan order for fiscal year 2020 capital improvement. Want to open the hearing for those in favor? Anyone who wants to speak in favor? Close that portion. Anyone who wants to speak in opposition? In opposition to the capital improvement plan? That portion is closed. Any discussion regarding the capital improvement? I need a motion to adopt. And
So move, Mr. Chair.
Seconded.
Refer it to the clerk's office.
Yeah, no. Councilor Noon's not letting me finish. Motion to adopt and refer to the clerk's office for 20 days. Motion made by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Cirillo. Roll call.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway.
Yes.
Council Elliott. Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy. Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Okay. Next. We have loan order, wastewater capital improvement, $67 million. Want to open the hearing. Those that want to speak in favor? In favor? Yes. Please give your name and address.
Hi, my name is Lynn Daly, and I reside at 35 Windward Road. Gary and Ruth Plotwin of 463 Douglas Road are also here with me. I'm speaking in favor of the loan order, items 4.4 and 4.5, to finance wastewater enterprise capital improvements. In particular, I am speaking in favor for the financing of the construction of a wet weather storage facility for Douglas Road. The Douglas Road, Windward Road sewer surcharge events are a well-known 50-year-old problem. The construction of a wet weather storage facility system, as required in the loan order, will prevent these surcharge events, which create unsanitary conditions with raw sewage flooding into basements and roadways. As a taxpayer and someone who has experienced these surcharge events for over 50 years, I want to understand what the project is for which the money is being appropriated. So I researched wet weather storage facilities. This is a significant engineering project and needs to be done correctly. I also looked into what is involved in the EPA mandated integrated plan. The requirements put forth by the EPA are also significant. What I did not find in my IP research was a requirement for a project timeline and schedule. Along with defining the project, funding the project, complying with the EPA, I would like to see, as a taxpayer and a stakeholder in the project, a project timeline and schedule. A tool such as this should help to keep the project on time and within budget. As I said, this is a significant engineering project with a good size price tag. I have the utmost faith that City Manager Eileen Donoghue and Executive Director Mark Young and their staffs will execute these improvements in accordance with the terms of the loan order, as well as the agreement the City of Lowell has with the EPA that requires the city to develop a plan for combined sewer overflow. The project will be managed by the A-Team. It is backed by significant data that justifies the approach. I believe the project is sound, necessary, and long overdue. I hope that the City Council will vote in favor of the loan orders for the wastewater enterprise capital improvements. Thank you.
Further discussion? In favor? That portion is closed. Anyone wants to speak in opposition? 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 That portion is closed. Discussion, Councilman Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to get on the record, we all received a letter from Joe Hungler from the Boys Club asking to be recorded in favor of the loan order, in favor of both loan orders. So I did give that to the city clerk, and just from the floor, I just want to make sure that that gets into the minutes. But I would move approval.
Thank you. So I need a motion to adopt and refer to the clerk's office for 20 days. Motion made by Councilman Milonazo, second by Councilor Elliott. Thank you. Roll call.
Council New.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I see Mr. Young is here. I'd like to have him come to the podium, please. And just describe, the loan order, the projects associated with it, project schedules, et cetera. I mean, it's $67 million, so.
Correct. We'll be looking at continuing the efforts that the city has been making over the years to comply with the consent decree that was given to the city by EPA in order to mitigate CSOs. So some of the projects that we'll be looking at doing is, like the project Ms. Daly stated, a storage project on the Douglas Road area to eliminate sewer backups in that area. Also a storage area in the Peavy Street parcel that will be used to stop the overflows that are affecting the Boys and Girls Club in that area of the city, and also near the DPW building, Sales Street, and that area. We'll be looking at continuing improvements at the treatment plant in order to maximize flow to the treatment plant so that we can try to eliminate CSOs that way. So we're always assuring that we have 100% treatment capacity at the plant. We're looking at satellite treatment facility. We've been talking about for a long time that we haven't had the funding for, and this is by the Hunts Falls Bridge and where the candy canes are on that piece of property, as well as where some of the CSO stations are. In order to move the CSO flow along and not discharge it to the river, where Beaver Brook and the Concord River are, we'll be building siphons underneath the river to bring it to this treatment facility. So, and we'll also be looking to upgrade the current pump stations throughout the city also.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a good recap. I think given the amount of attention that has been given to a number of wastewater treatment plants, it's imperative, well, first, it's part of the consent decree that we continue to address CSOs that are polluting the river, and I think this is another step. Can you tell me what we've invested in the last 10 years since we signed that, or was it longer? 15 years.
About
since that-
125 million.
Okay.
And we've also made substantial progress too, because we were discharging over 1 billion gallons of CSO into the river. We were the worst discharger on the Merrimack River, and that right now is under 300 million gallons a year. So we made a lot of success, but we have a ways to go.
But we have a ways to go, but again, 127 million plus this, we have to do it. We can afford what people can afford and still make progress, take care of neighborhoods, take care of, raw sewage that is coming in. I just wanted to, bring to light what we have been doing. And yes, there are discharges. We're an old city, all of the sewers, all the drainage are tied into our sewers, and when we get high rains, yes, it does go in. Not one of us here wants to do that, but what is reasonable, what is affordable, what is practical, given all the other necessities that we have. But this will, again, take us to another step to reducing any overflows. And so I will support it. I think it's important that we do this and to continue to improve the Merrimack River. Quite frankly, and I don't know what the effort is being made in Congress, but we're doing our share, and there are communities up in the Merrimack River that are not, and that are contributing to the less water quality. We take our drinking water from here, so I'm sure Congresswoman Trahan is on it, and we'll have to stay that course. So thank you, Mr. Young, for that explanation.
Councilman Lazo, then Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up, Lynn Daly was quite articulate in her comments as a supporter, not only as a taxpayer, but as a stakeholder. So just to pick up on Lynn's point about a timetable, Mark, if you can provide this council through the manager's office the information that Lynn requested relative to the timetable, if that can be provided.
Well, right now, Council, once we get the authorization that is voted on, and our next stage, we have to submitting some RFQs out for engineering firms so that we can start this process.
Okay.
So we're still a ways away from being able to give to the city manager some type of schedule that we'd be looking. So we do have a lot of projects that we're doing, and we'll prioritize those that will affect public health first.
Okay. Again, as long as we can get that information.
And we will certainly keep the council apprised of timetable, as well as the stakeholders and neighbor and Ms. Daly as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Mercia, Councilman Newman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to please let it be known that I did speak to Mark Young earlier before this council meeting started, because on my desk was another letter about rainwater runoff and an accumulation at a massive rate. And I know that as we finish one project, we probably will have another one on our hands. And I want the people to know that live at the corner of Raven Road and Broadview Road in the Belvedere section of the city that there is a very deep depression of approximately 3 feet and the length of about 20 feet with the width of the road that fills with rainwater during heavy rainstorms, and it actually rises up from over the curb and flows throughout a butter's yards. So listening to Lynn, we also have it in other areas as well. So can we just put this on the list for the second round of money, because this is important as well? You don't think by chance that when you fix this area it'll help across the street, the other side?
Probably not, but we'll look into it.
All right, please, this is important too. Thank you.
Councilman Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I first walk in, Lynn Daly remind me that I was here on the council back in 2012 when the council voted for the first loan orders on this issue. And I know it's been some time, and I know it's time that we invest in this. Not only this time, it will certainly address some of her concern closer to home. And Joe Hunger also mentioned about the impact that it has on the Boy and Girl Club and the surrounding areas. So this is money we're spending, and we have to spend it anyway because to meet the EPA, condition. So my question is to Mark Young: is this how many year project is this?
10 years.
10 years, and after 10 years, another 10 years coming, right? Wow. So, I mean, I do concur with, Councilor Malinazzo that, and if we can let the stakeholders, those who are impacted by it, know the timeline, certainly be very, they'll be very happy to hear and knowing that their concern being addressed, and so that update, will be certainly helpful to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just following up on that, I can understand that you need this vote first of all and then other things. But at what point do you think you would have a timeline? Go ahead.
I would hope so, but within a year, we could have a timeline. But I want to stress, too, that in a situation like Ms. Daly was talking about, is something that we would prioritize, because that is a public health issue beyond CSOs. The sewage in the street, and I want to stop that.
Right.
There's two areas of the city that we need to address.
And that issue in that area goes back a long, long way.
Yes.
When I was on the city council first time around, that was an issue down in that area. So for a timeline just for that, when do you think you'd have that?
Are you talking about a timeline, if once we...
Not for the whole 67, just for that, for what you're prioritizing as far as that area over at...
We want to do those projects, PV and those projects first.
Right.
Those we'd like to put out, so that we could have that, hopefully within a year's time. I could actually give you a concrete, say, here's when the project's going to start, and then here's the construction schedule that we would have.
Okay.
But it depends, too, on how long it's going to take us to do the RFQ process, get an engineer on board, have them do... We have an idea of what we want to do to solve this, but we want to make sure that that's correct.
I understand that, but that could be part of the timeline, too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct, yes.
So if that was part of the timeline, then when would they be able to get a timeline?
I'd say within a short period of time, a couple of months.
A couple of months?
We should know that.
Okay.
After that.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Madam Manager?
And I just wanted to point out that these investments, which are critically important for both CSO and water storage, we are not including in this budget any rate increase for water or sewer in the FY20 budget, just so people at home understand that.
All set. Roll call.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
Next, we have loan out of water enterprise capital improvement of $45 million. Open the hearing for those in favor. Those who want to speak in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak in favor of this loan order. This loan order will allow Mr. Young and his staff to make improvements on the water system in the city, which is critical for not only domestic water, but also for the hydrant system in the city. If we have a large building fire, we hook up a hose to the hydrant, which is hooked up to the water mains, and we establish a continuous water supply when we have a large structure fire. So if we have a water main break in the middle of a structure fire, it's very dangerous for both the firefighters and the public. So to improve the water mains and the hydrant system in the city will go a long way towards making fire protection better for the citizens and as well as the firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? That portion is closed. Anyone speaking in opposition? Opposition? That portion is closed. I need a motion to adopt and refer to the clerk's office.
So moved.
By Councilor Cirillo, second by Councilor Noon. Roll call.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have ordinance amend, chapters 28 and 42, Lowell Police Department Training Account Revolving Fund. Open the hearing for those who want to speak in favor. In favor? That portion is closed. Anyone who wants to speak in opposition? Opposition? That portion is closed. I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
By Councilor Conway, second by Councilor Elliott. Discussion? Yes, Councilor Elliott.
Through you to the city manager. I think this is important. I think it's a method of tracking the training that we do a very good job in those communities, but could you explain, the purpose from the administration's perspective?
Yeah, this is in large part under the new Municipal Modernization Act. It enables the city to establish this fund and not have to revote this every year. The appropriation has to be voted each year, but the fund would be established and would not have to be recreated by vote every year. So it makes it a little more flexible than what currently exists under the existing municipal law. However, the funding would have to be approved and appropriated by the council on an annual basis.
Okay, so would it be part of the annual budget process, or, similar to the parking, or is it truly an enterprise fund?
No, this will operate like a revolving fund under that statute, and municipal modernization allowed for a little bit more flexibility. This account, prior to the vote that's on the agenda tonight, operated as what's known as a receipt for appropriation account. So each time an expenditure would need to be made from the training money, and this is money that comes from other towns, that pays the Lowell Police Department for the police academy, and they provide training. It goes to fund equipment. But anytime an expenditure would need to come from the fund, it would require an appropriation from the council. This method of accounting for the funds requires one vote at the beginning of the year, and will be similar to a vote this council will see in about a week to 2 weeks to reauthorize all revolving accounts. But during for 1 year, during the course of that year, expenditures can be made without further appropriation.
Okay. So as part of that vote, could I, not in the form of a motion, but could I request that we get a report on those expenses, those revenues or receipts that have come in for those funds? And, well, I know it doesn't have the other side of the balance sheet per se, but I think it would be good to show, okay, we do training, we do get revenue that comes in, but what are our expenses and what are those offsets? Thank you.
All set. Roll call.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy. Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Okay, we had our hearings, but we have a number of people waiting. Can I do 5.3, then yours, Councilor? Just 5.3, communications. Appoint Greg Studwell to the Sustainability Council. I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
By Councilor Cirillo, second by Councilor Elliott. Roll call.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy. Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Congratulations, Mr. Studwell.
Mr. Studwell is here, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I'd like to just make a statement. Again, my name is Greg Studwell. I live at 35 Riverwalk Way in Renaissance in the River condo. Thank you to City Manager Donahue for my appointment to the Sustainability Council. And thank you to Mayor Samaras and the rest of the City Council to make this opportunity available for me to serve my city. I work at TRC, which is an environmental engineering and construction company in Wanalancet Mills. I'm a senior GIS analyst, and I'm also a sustainability coordinator there, where I coordinate all the recycling and metrics for our waste streams, and including paper, energy, and so on. So I also am on the Board of Trustees at the Renaissance in the River condo. I'm also the chair of the Sustainability Committee. And right now we're looking at putting solar panels on our 2 buildings at Lawrence Mills. I'm working with Steve Stoll to make sure that the panels aren't too visible. And something that he really cares about. We're also taking a sort of holistic sustainability approach there. We're doing composting. We're helping people repair our windows. Our windows are, sometimes the building's 150 years old. And, sometimes the windows are very heavy and hard for people to open and close. So Steve Stoll has coordinated us to get a repair program for our windows, and that's been very successful. So my background is in urban affairs and planning, and good urban design and livable cities. So I think I could bring a lot of the sustainability work that I do and at the condo and at work to a larger audience for the city of Lowell to make sustainability is an important part of livability. So I think that I look forward to serving on the Sustainability Council, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to suspend the rules and allow motion 9.5 to come in. We have 4 registered speakers on this particular
Second by Councilor
motion.
Elliott. Thank you. 9.5.
9.5, right.
By Councilor Mercia, requires city manager to have transportation engineer find ways and means to promote public safety for walking neighborhoods, school children on La Plume Avenue and Barbara Street before and after AM and PM dismissal time.
Second.
Second. That's been done by Councilor Elliott.
We'll let the speakers speak
Yes.
first. Thank you.
We'll call the speakers.
Deb Belanger.
Thank you for your patience.
Old times sitting here during a budget, so congratulations on passing it. I'm Deb Belanger. I live at 65 La Plume Avenue, and with me I have 3 of my neighbors. Cindy is from 57 La Plume Avenue, and Crystal is 69 La Plume Avenue, and then we also have Sylvia, who's at Barbara Street. I don't know if you know the neighborhood I'm talking about, but it's a quiet little neighborhood in Pawtucketville. La Plume Avenue is a half of moon off of West Meadow. We have 2 schools, the Wang School and the Pawtucket Memorial, and we also have Lowell General Hospital below us. La Plume connects with Barbara Street. Our street becomes a pass-through beginning at 6:30 in the morning. I think it became a pass-through a few years ago when there was a project going on with like gas lines and things like that, and people found where La Plume Avenue was. Nobody ever knew where it was, and we kind of liked it. I've lived there for 30 years, and my neighbors have been, I don't know how, yeah, she's one behind me and a few behind them. My son went to both Pawtucket Memorial and the Wang School. He walked. The neighborhood is now changing. We used to have a lot of older families, kids have grown. We actually have a woman who lives diagonally from me, who lives by herself, and she's 102. So, but we're here tonight because we have major concerns with La Plume being a cut-through, and with the schools, and with Lowell General Hospital. We would like the council to ask the traffic engineers to look at the possibility of making it for local traffic at certain times. We have that along, along the boulevard, and we have that along Varnum Avenue. We have no sidewalks on La Plume or Barbara Street. That becomes a public safety issue for the kids that are walking on the streets, both La Plume and Barbara. This year we noticed the buses from the schools are traveling these side streets. It's gonna cause an accident. I've worked with John Dakota for the last couple of months. I will call him, tell him what bus went down the road, and he would call the bus company. But we can't be policing this every single day and calling John and saying bus number this or bus number that. But I'm going to let Cindy and Crystal and Sylvia talk and give more information. Thank you.
Cindy Deschanel.
That's me. So it starts about 6:30 a.m. We can
pretty much set our clocks to it. You can tell Lower General's 7 o'clock shift is going to start soon because the cars just start quickly. We have no speed limit signs. And then the next is when the buses are loading and unloading the kids, you can tell the cut-throughs. The cars start whizzing by. And as Debbie said, before they had the detour, putting traffic through our road, nobody knew of that road. Low General is built up, the schools are there, the buses are there, and now, as she said, the buses are parking, waiting for their turn to stage because they have to go in a certain order. In the winter, you add the snowpack. Now you have the snow, there's no sidewalks. It's just an accident waiting to happen. Lord forbid a fire truck has to get through. I've come home and there's parents parked on both sides. You can't get through. You got kids walking, you can't get through. It's just an accident waiting to happen. And we live there. You have to go past your road to go up and come in a different way because you can't go home. It needs to be addressed. I have paperwork from back in 2003 when my kids were going to the school where it was addressed, and it's even a worse issue. There's younger kids, the older people are moving out, younger families are moving in, now there's more younger kids. It's just, I'm surprised it hasn't been an accident. It's just waiting to happen.
Sylvia Quadros.
Hello, I live at 145 Barbara, which is the corner of, at the end of Barbara, and it abuts La Plume as well. So I get the brunt of it all. So I get all the buses trying to make U-turns in my driveway, the parents trying to get by because now they're parking on both sides of La Plume. So you have children trying to walk home, the buses trying to get by, no sidewalks. The dynamics of the neighborhood has changed quite a bit. So I've been there 21 years. My daughter now lives across from me on La Plume with her children. So I just fear for the safety of my grandchild going to school in September, but the safety of residents as well. Like, we have a hard time getting in and out of our driveways. Parents are just racing to get to and from school. The buses are turning around everywhere they can because they don't want to get stuck on West Meadow where the crosswalk is at the bottom. Traffic goes all the way up any time of the day. We have recorded multiple times just buses barreling through, like Debbie said, Cindy said, there's no city, there's no speed limits, there's nothing. There's a stop sign at the end of my house, which no one respects. So if the city wants to make money, they really should put a police officer in my living room because you'd get tickets every 5 seconds. I think this just really needs to be looked at for the safety of not just the residents, but foremost our children. We have a lot of young couples moving in with children, and they walk to school, and it's just not fair. There's not a sidewalk, and they don't have an inch of street to walk on. Thank you.
Krista Winchester.
Hi, so I live at 69 La Plume. I've got 2 young children. I constantly have to close the fence, bungee the fence, and still just can't take my eyes off the 3-year-old for 2 seconds because, a ball could go under that fence or just, oh, look, a pretty car, and he just wants to run right out there, and it's petrifying. I mean, they fly. You see school bus drivers on their phone, people on their phone. Everybody's distracted nowadays. It's just really scary, and honestly, the stop sign is worse because now nobody wants to stop and they're trying to beat this traffic, so they do a really fast rolling stop, and it's caused almost so many accidents. Or if they stop, they're on their phone and then they gun it before they even look to see if anybody's coming the other way. It's scary to live in that neighborhood with little kids, and hopefully they'll be going to that school, and I just fear, like, it's pretty sad that I'll have to drive them right down the street because I'm too scared to have them walk. But thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to make one more comment. When you are, La Plume interconnects with West Meadow, and at that corner there is a family, and the son is disabled. And I know that Councilor Marcia was able to get them a handicap sign, because let me tell you, they couldn't park on their street to get access into their house from La Plume Avenue. And the crosswalk from the school over to La Plume, it ends at a place where there's not a sidewalk. So that's kind of crazy. And it was Councilor Elliott years ago that got that stop sign for us at Barbara Street in La Plume, because I live right there. You could just pull up my driveway, and it has helped. But again, people just, it's that rolling stop. I probably have gotten a ticket for one of those rolling stops at some point in my life. But again, school is out this Friday, and I think you just really need to look at it over the summer and do what you need to do so we can perhaps get some, relief come the fall, and, again, make it only available to local traffic, from 6:30 to 9 o'clock, and probably from 2 to 4, something like that.
She's also autistic, and so she's too afraid to have her walk alone, and her husband's deaf.
Yeah, the family that lives at that corner, her daughter is also autistic, and her husband is deaf. So it does make it challenging in the area. But thank you for your time. We appreciate all the work you do on behalf of the residents, and just let me know what you need from us, and we'll wait to hear from you. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't have said that any better. I want to thank the four women for coming down and giving their testimony to safety in their neighborhood. If we can refer this, Madam Manager, to Natasha Vance, because she's the professional and she could probably work with the neighbors and help them to make a better area for them. And the point that we're trying to stress is there are no sidewalks, and cars are parking so literally against people's property, so the children have to go out around and be right in the middle of the street. So it's very, very scary. You heard what they said. I couldn't top that. It was wonderful. So if we can, and I know school is almost over, but if we can have a plan in place so that when school starts in September, the end of August, whenever it starts, they'll be on board and everything will be fine. Thank you so much.
We will have Natasha look at this.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure she'll be in contact.
Councilor Elliott and Councilor Lee.
Thank you. I do know the neighborhood very, very well in that particular area, and I can see why because there's more traffic everywhere, people are finding the roads that you wouldn't think, they're making them cut through. So I support the motion, and thank you to all who came down. Thank you, Deb, and her neighbors. So I think it makes sense. Once we do get the report, perhaps I'd like to see if the Transportation Subcommittee could meet, because that whole area, that neighborhood, it'll be comprehensive, I'm sure. So if there's no objection to the maker motion, once the report's in, I'd like to have a refer it to the Transportation Subcommittee.
Yes, that's good.
A second
I
by
support
Councilor
that.
Mercia. Thank you. Councilor Lee, then Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you. When you have that transportation subcommittee, I think it'd be important to have someone from the bus company here too, because it's not uncommon today. The buses go through yellow lights. They don't care. They're trying to make their schedules, but it's just ridiculous that they don't stop at stop signs, and they go through yellow lights to make their runs. So I think that obviously needs to stop. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy, then Councilor Cirillo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question. You referenced a letter from 2003. You said that no, I just wondered, was the solution that the city came up with in 2003 the stop sign?
No, they put a letter out to all residents of Plymouth Ave. They suggested a one-way during certain times, and the vote was 7 to 8. Again,
Okay, so ultimately, the city really didn't do anything at that time? Okay, and so if you did that in 2003, this issue's been going on for a long, long time. Okay. You know, Mr. Mayor, if I could, through you to the city manager, I think we should take a second look at speed bumps. A lot of communities are now using speed bumps in certain areas, and I think in some cases it's just not a bad idea at all. And I understand that there's issues with the plows, but if other communities are doing it in New England, and they have to use plows, then there must be a way to do it in a way that will be not incompatible with snow plowing in the wintertime. But I do think it's worth just a second look. And I think that if we looking at that and maybe restricting traffic to just local residents, I mean, all of that is cheaper than what the real solution would be, which would be construct sidewalks on the street, right? So anyways, I'll be interested to get the report. But I do think just in this instance, but also just throughout the city in certain areas, it's worth taking a second look at speed bumps and whether or not they make sense for some areas. Thank you.
All right, all set. Councilor Cirillo?
Hi, yes. I know that Natasha and the city received the Waze City Connected approval just recently. I'm wondering if maybe we can do something to maneuver on Waze away from these streets.
Yeah, we will get that report. Natasha has been working very hard to get us approved with Waze and Lyft, and we did just get notified that we are approved. So we have a relationship to try and work on those angles. So I'm sure she's going to take that into consideration.
Right, yes, thank you.
All set. Thank you. Councilor Mercy, you're all set? All right. All right, next we go to communication to the city manager. Homelessness Task Force update.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, yeah. It was a fantastic response, and I look forward to hearing what the expert Barbara Pope has to say and how she can help the city. And I think it's wonderful that the task force created 2 committees to focus on the housing and crisis response issues. And we have a lot of really wonderful people on this task force. So this was a fantastic response. Thank you.
Madam Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, this is just a status report of where the task force is. It's been working very hard since March. All of the community members who are and stakeholders who are on it have put a tremendous amount of time and effort, both on the task force and on the subcommittees for housing and crisis response. As you mentioned, Barb Poppy, who is the consultant, this has been a team effort with Greater Lowell Community Foundation, CTI, the City of Lowell, and the Lowell Plan. And I know Barb Poppy, and I believe everybody should have been invited, will be speaking at the Greater Lowell Community Foundation's event tomorrow evening about homelessness, and we do expect to have a report and action plan by the beginning of August. So we will certainly bring that full report back to the council, dealing with not just homelessness, but the sustainable housing, which is the critical part of this as we are learning. So the report in the packet gives you a status, but we will have a much more full report once this task force has formulated the action plan.
Thank you.
How's that? Next, we have the information reports, State of the City presentation. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. We did provide the council with a copy of a State of the City report, and I won't read every single line of the report. We did want you to have it, though, for your benefit to look at. But I did want to go over some of the, especially at this point in time, where I wasn't quite sure whether we'd reach it before we had the budget deliberation or after, but I think it's an appropriate point in time to discuss with the council where we are at this point and where the city is going. And so the key points that I'd touch on: economic development and what are the pillars of economic development. Of course, the strong finances, public safety, our partnerships, and education. So let me just quickly go through some of these updates for you and for the folks at home as far as where is the city today. And I will just talk about some of the developments in terms of economic development and just quickly run through some of them for you. You know, with regard to the Hamilton Canal Innovation District, streets F and G, the infrastructure there is nearing completion, as well as the Signature Bridge. Those projects are key to further development and future development, and what we have heard from those who are interested to locate in the Hamilton Canal. The parking garage, as you may recall, when it went out to bid earlier this year, came in with bids much more than what the council had budgeted. We went back to the drawing board and chose a CM at risk form of building the delivery of the project. I'm happy to tell you that all of the companies who bid could do it within the budget. We chose Shawmut Construction, who is underway. The new design is wrapping up, and construction is expected to begin late this summer. We have ongoing negotiations with other development in the Hamilton Canal. We also, I did want to point out that the city this year has received over $8 million in combined grant funding from various sources: DPD programs, earmarks from the state, home programs, supportive housing, and the like. A couple of things to note: the Canalway Cultural District in downtown was designated one of the great neighborhoods in the USA for 2018 by American Planning Association. We've also experienced a renewed interest in the City Industrial Park for job growth, particularly from the Mass Life Science community. So we are in discussions with interested parties who are very interested in locating there. We dispersed $216,000 of earmarks secured via the state. Thank you to our representative, Senator, who is here. And the city also received the United States Conference of Mayors 2019 Partner America Small Business Friendly Community Award. We partnered with the LDFC to provide loans for 4 downtown businesses in startup growth phase. There are 9 new storefront businesses welcomed in downtown. So those are some of the highlights of what's been going on in terms of economic development. Let me quickly address infrastructure and energy. As we know, we spoke here at length, the Lord Overpass. It will be underway. Again, the very important corridor beautifying the link between Gallagher and the Hamilton Canal District in downtown. Construction is going to begin in September of this year, 2019, and that's going to run 36 to 40 months. Route 38, the project, this is a MassDOT project, $4.5 million. It's truly a highway safety improvement project. That project has been fully designed, and it too will begin in late summer 2019. We've installed as well rapid flashing beacons in neighborhoods to improve pedestrian safety in and around the city. Again, more earmark for Tanner Street, $250,000. Again, staying on the infrastructure and energy, the Tiger Bridges, we've completed the rehab of Merrimack Street over Merrimack Canal Bridge, and the other program that we wanted to bring you up to date on is the VO Ride program that continues to be very successful in the city. About a week ago, there were 8,660 rides over the past couple of months, and that's about 200 uses a day in the city, 1,730 miles ridden. When it comes to energy, the Community Choice Power Supply Program that we've been involved with has led to savings of over $1.1 million. And so those are some of the things that are going on with regard to the infrastructure and energy. I wanted to highlight a couple of things under quality of life. Obviously, we all know that the plastic bag ordinance passed here by the City Council has been implemented, and the intent is to reduce waste in the city and hopefully waste in our recycling. And I know we have our new member of the Sustainability Council, but hopefully the reduction in recycling and contamination, it may help us reduce our fees that we're paying for that. Our neighborhood liaison has been working very hard to connect with neighborhoods and also with teams throughout the city, enforcing zoning, stronger code enforcement, walking the neighborhoods. The neighborhood impact walks have begun and are working collaboratively across the neighborhoods. We have focused this past year on diversity and inclusion based on motions that the council has supported and encouraged. And this has been in all departments of our city staff. We established an internal working group, and that is to focus specifically on diversity and inclusion. We recently provided a mandatory diversity and cultural awareness training for all department heads. Staying under quality of life, the City Council appropriated funding for a new bus from the Senior Center to improve access and mobility for our seniors. And last but not least, the initiative of pickleball courts. I don't want you to think that the city has forgotten about that, but they're in the process of being striped, and the vendor has been selected, and we're financing the contract as far as that goes. So we're looking forward, the 3 points when it comes to economic development, looking forward to preserve the assets of yesterday, to find solutions to the challenges of today, and to plan for the city of tomorrow. And we want to encourage economic development in the city, not just by attracting new businesses, but encouraging and retaining those businesses that we have here. And at the same time, seeking out new businesses and investing in all of our neighborhoods across the city. The next item that I'd like to bring the council up to date on, and that touches on education as to where we are currently when it comes to education. So we've exceeded net school spending by $7.1 million in the latest numbers that were certified by DESE, and the overall contribution of over $45 million to the schools and the city funded support. Of that, $15.7 million in direct cash. The budget for the schools in Chapter 70 money in FY19 was $150,935,483. Under FY19, that increased to $160,069,000. And now we expect in FY20 that amount to be over $176 million in Chapter 70, so for our schools. A tremendous investment, although the schools always need more based on the challenges that they face. We have spent $4.1 million in capital repairs in our various schools, including the roof and the emergency HVAC work at the Lowell High School. Under education, the mayor proclaimed Lowell a UNESCO Learning City, and this was built on not only in reinforcing education, but partnerships. I did want to point out, and though it doesn't seem to come strictly under education, but work orders. As we've talked about earlier tonight, a lot of the work that our DPW is doing in the schools each and every day. So this past year, our DPW completed 1,819 work orders just in the schools alone. So they are working in the schools every day, most days. We secured a COPS grant of $471,000 to stop school violence. And what that's being used is to fund student safety coordinator, equipment, and software licensing. We continue to work with the partnership with the Lowell Public Schools, and as I mentioned, Met regularly with Superintendent Janine Durkin. I've met with Dr. Boyd already, and we look forward to establish a weekly meeting to keep the communication going between the city and the Lowell Public Schools. As I mentioned earlier, we applied for 9 MSBA accelerated repair grants to take advantage of that opportunity. We're cautiously optimistic that we should get good news the last week of June after the MSBA has their meeting in June. Lowell High School. This has dominated a lot of the time and attention, and rightfully so. I do want to commend the council for the vote and the bold vote that was taken a little over a year ago to move this project forward and to provide the city and the students of the city with the state-of-the-art high school for decades to come. We've spent most of this past year working diligently on this project. We accelerated efforts once we were approved by the MSBA a year ago, and we moved through the modules of the MSBA process. We finished the schematic design. We also have finished project module 5, which is project scope and budget. I just received the finalized signed contract from the MSBA the other day, and so we are moving to complete sets of design drawing. Again, over a 600,000 square foot project. The budget, $343,399,220, and of which approximately $215 million grant approved by the MSBA, and the city's cost $127,400,000. Again, very, very time-intensive, critical project for the city, and one that we will all be proud of for many years to come. So looking forward in education, the goal is to enhance the quality of the public schools in the Greater Lowell Regional Technical High School, to enhance services that are being offered by our city departments for the schools and in support of the schools, and encourage citizens to participate in lifelong learning opportunities, and to work together with the public schools to make sure that the system provides quality education and working together to track outcomes. The next topic that I want to broach, financial management. We spent a great deal of time tonight looking at some of the financial work product of the CFO and his team. I do want to recognize the CFO. The city was awarded a GFOA Distinguished Budget Award for FY19. We had a limited tax, we limited the tax increase in FY19 to 2%. And that, this bears, I think, repeating. This really made Lowell residents one of the lowest average single-family tax bills in the Commonwealth. We were 244th out of 335 communities that reported to DOR. And what that translates into is this is $1,730 less than the average Massachusetts tax bill. Now, I recognize that it's tough for people to pay taxes, and it's why we struggle to try and keep our tax rate as low as possible, at the same time providing quality services. But when you compare the services that the city is providing, the quality of them, and still remaining that far below the average Mass tax bill, this credit goes to the council for their leadership on this initiative. We continue to fully fund the city's net school spending and then some, and I do point out for the past FY18 and FY19, we've done it without any federal funds of assistance, so that's been another challenge. Some of the things we've talked about, we adopted the new OPED funding formula, and we made deposits into that. So what are our goals for fiscal management looking forward? We want to improve the city's long-term fiscal outlook through sound fiscal policies, enhance the transparency of our financial management, and operate and maintain our physical assets to protect the public investment and to ensure achievements of the investment's natural or useful life. critical part of economic development, quality of life here in the city of Lowell is public safety. Without public safety, as we've talked about here many times, we would not have great success in other endeavors. I'm happy to announce that the new downtown Lowell Police Department substation is going to be open in the near future. It's under construction right now as we speak. It will be located on Central Street. It's going to be staffed with 17 officers, 2 commanding officers, and this will tremendously increase the presence of Lowell Police in the downtown, a benefit not just to businesses and residents, but for visitors coming into the downtown. We are maintaining the staffing levels. We continue to try and maintain the staffing levels by fully having a class in the academy this year. And those levels for LPD 250 and for the fire department 213. The chief mentioned some of the grant funding we received, the $917,000 that's going to help us buy more turnout gear so that firefighters can have, in some cases, two outfits of turnout gear. And we also have applied for more grant funding when it came to possibly getting fire trucks. I think one of the things that the police department has done was recommitted to community policing throughout the city, not just the downtown. Through the leadership of the new chief, Chief Richardson, and the police department has been actively engaging in community policing in the neighborhoods, and we've heard back from many of our residents their satisfaction seeing the police out and about. We saw a significant decrease in crime almost in every area that the LPD tracks. Just to name a few, 37% decrease in robbery, 51.2% decrease in theft from a motor vehicle, 60% decrease in motor vehicle theft, 36.5% decrease with burglary or breaking and entering. And so, those are good statistics as far as we're heading in the right direction, again, through the leadership of the Lowell Police Department. We purchased a new river patrol craft. You may have seen the images of it in the newspaper recently. But that's going to go a long way, having the Merrimack River safe for the recreation and boating. And they are already out on the river, patrolling and making certain that there's not the reckless and dangerous activity that sometimes occurred. Our new UTV that we purchased, the police department has arrived and is again out on the patrol. And this is going to assist, especially in areas where the average cruiser or even other vehicles couldn't get to. The UTV is going to be able to get down by the Riverwalk in areas that were not accessible. It carries up to 4 officers, and so it's going to be a very, very useful tool for the police in patrolling the city, whether it's through alleys, riverwalks, and the like, where they weren't able to get before. We continue to do upgrades. Part of the capital plan that we talked about, and that was the radios and the communications. There's significant investment being made there for both police and fire. I think that is $6 million, $6.3 million. This is upgrading our communications around 911, and it's a much-needed investment. We couldn't do it piecemeal. We had to do it all together for police and fire at once, the nature of the equipment, and so we will be implementing that as we move forward, and that's part of what you voted on tonight. So, public safety, looking forward, we want to make sure we enhance public safety in all of our neighborhoods, improve the quality of life by providing fire protection and prevention and emergency response services, public education activities that the fire department has been engaged in, and then to promote clean, healthy, safe, and substantial neighborhoods throughout the city. And last but not least, I just want to comment on our partnerships. The close partnerships are a very important aspect of how Lowell is not only surviving but thriving as a community. These partnerships are with state agencies, with business, with nonprofit, with UMass Lowell, with Middlesex Community College, with our State House delegation, with our representative in Congress, and they are very, very important as to how we move forward. I want to cite the mayor's opioid epidemic task force for the collaborative effort and partnership that it brings and all the hard work bringing stakeholders together fighting the opioid epidemic. The task force that I mentioned earlier on homelessness and housing sustainability, again, partnerships all across the community, and they are working very hard together to a unified goal, addressing chronically homeless, which is plaguing not just our city, but communities across this country. As I mentioned, DPD continues to work with UMass Innovation Hub. Again, these partnerships, we take them for granted because they do it so well working together, but it doesn't always happen. It almost rarely happens that you see that type of working together. And so I wanted to cite 4 companies that this past year DPD and UMass worked to move them from the Innovation Hub, where they were working in an incubator sort of existence, to other locations, to their own permanent homes right here in Lowell. And those include Stitch DX, digital marketing firm, Horsepower Technologies, it's a high-tech firm, Invisaware, which is a wearable technology firm, and Cade Systems, which is artificial intelligence software. Those happened by partnering and by utilizing our other partnerships, including the LDFC, who assisted with loans, the state, who assisted with funding, and our own city pools of loans that they were all put together for each of these companies in order to keep them here and give them a permanent home. And so, having companies stay here and grow is working in our partnership with UMass Lowell. I want to cite a partnership that early stages looked very good. We saw it recently out at First Street when, as a result of council's motions, between our departments, Mass DEP, MassDOT, the Sheriff's Department, all came together to try and address an area that's been plagued with kind of neglect and abuse on First Street. And so we look forward to working together to make sure we clean that up. And I also wanted to recognize some of the other things that we're working on. The Sci-Fi Networks, we're finalizing contract there so that we will, through the contract, build out a fiber optic network in the city that's going to give the residents opportunity for other options when it comes to fiber. So those are some of the highlights of where we've gone and what we're working on over this past year or so. And I'd invite any questions.
Councilor Kennedy. Thank you, Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe it's a question, maybe it's just looking for clarification, but earlier in your report, when you were talking about economic development, one of the things that you mentioned was that the Air Industrial Park had been, that there was some life science industry looking at that. What about the Hamilton Innovation District? Was that just an oversight that they didn't mention them? Is there a reason why that industry would look at air as opposed to the Hamilton Canal?
Yeah, and I did have a line, I maybe skipped over, but I did have a line. We do have ongoing discussions in the Hamilton Canal District as well.
With life
companies.
science industry?
Not as much life science. The life science interest is a much larger footprint that they're looking for. It doesn't fit into the Hamilton Canal District. It's more manufacturing.
Right.
And in a much more significant scope.
Okay. So the reason that you didn't mention it is just because the industry or the company that's looking to maybe locate there we kind of accommodate them at the
Right.
at the Hamilton
They looked at
Innovation
it.
District.
They
Yeah,
looked at
okay.
it, but it's not big enough for
Okay.
what they're looking for.
All right.
But there is lots of interest. I think one of the things with the Hamilton Canal Innovation District, companies have been waiting for the infrastructure, two things really. The infrastructure to be completed, so the roadways or the parcels are actually accessible, and then the garage, some assurance that there is going to be a garage there. And so the garage construction's beginning this summer, and as we wrap up the design. And so I think you'll see a change once those things are underway. We also have had, I think we talked to the council about this previously. We did put out, just for bid, for interest, a private parcel number 1 to see if there's an interest in building a private built garage, and we have received significant interest from private companies to do that. So we'll be bringing some of that back to you. So there's a lot happening over there as well. And in the life science ones, it's ambitious, but seems to be a real interest.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Madam Manager, I'm very impressed by your State of the City report. I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment and rather an update. And you talked about partnerships, and we're very blessed in this city with the many partnerships from all over that we have. And in particular, the partnership that we had with the many departments and the cleanup of the First Street in Centerville, which abuts 110. And all parties responded to Thursday, May 30th and Friday, May 31st. With Randy Witz, the Deputy Superintendent of our CWP Community Work Program, who oversaw 8 inmates, along with 3 National Grid workers, DPW, Lowell Police. Even Doreen Burgess was there. She provided the food and refreshments through the efforts of the State Rep Tom Golden. And Midge Landry, a resident in the Centerville section of the city, who prompted this motion to begin with, who had the debris flying in front of her car from the hill, who almost got in an accident. Before this even started, she picked up 8 bags of trash on her own, whereby the DPW crew went there and took it away for her. Well, they started their work on both days, 8 in the morning till 2. Now, Midge Landry amassed 14 bags of trash all by herself with the 2 days there. For the 2 days, the crew cleaned up and gathered, are you ready for this? 65 bags of trash. They filled 1.5 dumpster with large objects such as mattresses, TVs, and miscellaneous big items. So that's a partnership I'm very, very proud of. I'm very proud of the co-op team that go out and save lives on a daily basis. We're very, very blessed in this city. Not that we have a lot of money, but we have a lot of good people and a lot of crews that come together. So we're very lucky in this city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilman Malazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, congratulations to City Manager Donahue on an exceptional State of the City report. As was mentioned, the partnerships are just so important as we go forward, and I think under your leadership over the past 1.5 years, we've been able to grow on some of the partnerships we've had in the past, and we continue to identify new ones. My only concern is that the State of the City report was so exceptional that I don't want it to get lost in the budget process this evening. So I think that if you wanted to, hold it over for further discussion. I mean, I personally remember when city managers have given the State of the City from the podium and had really 1 or 2 other items on the agenda. And this State of the City, in my opinion, was much more comprehensive and inclusive than what we've heard before. So again, congratulations to the team, but I just don't want it to get lost in the budget discussions tonight because there's so much good information here that I think the residents really do need to know about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. We thought about having it on a light agenda night, but that just hasn't really ever happened.
You're right.
Any further discussion? No, I want to thank the manager because this is something that we need. And is this going to be on the website, Madam Manager?
Yeah, we can put it on the website, Mr. Mayor, if,
I think it has
Yeah.
to. And I don't know, but maybe there's a possibility of breaking some of this down and bringing it out to the neighborhoods also.
yeah,
Electrical
we
work,
can
but-
certainly make that available. It's to give people an idea of where we stand today and what's in process. I think there's sometimes so many things going on, it's hard to focus on all of it, so.
But I mean, you've put it in print. I mean, it's terrific. Thank you very much. Anything else?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Councilor Noon.
If I may, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I concur with Councilor Malinazzo. It is very comprehensive, a lot of work put into it, and you have done a lot of work on this in terms of partnership and working with other entities, private or non-private, and that's important in a city like Lowell. We pray ourselves all that, the strength of our city is the diversity and the partnership that we have had with people across the board, private and non-profit. So I agree with you, Mayor, that maybe we take this to the neighborhood meeting so that neighborhood and non-profit organization know what the city have done thus far, the work that the manager and her team have done. So I would suggest that we do take it a step further, and I think it's true that it might have lost on this budget thing because it's what is it, 9 o'clock, almost 9:30, and some just probably tune in and said, I'll listen to it later, but missed this very important stated procedure address by you. So if there's a way we can just recap it and bring it out to the community, we should do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy?
But why don't we just put it on the website? That's probably a good thing to do. I don't know that we need a motion to do that. I think everybody's in general agreement that that would be a good idea for everybody. So if we can do that, that's...
We don't want to create more work, but the thing is, there's a lot of good information that the public really has to look at and review.
Right.
Any other suggestions? Okay. Thank you. Madam Manager, then you have capital plan presentation.
Yeah, we do have a presentation if the council wants it. I know we already voted on it, but we can make it very brief. It depends on the wish of the council.
But why don't we delay action until the next meeting to have that report at the next meeting? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, good idea.
Second.
Nobody wants a marathon session? Okay. All right, I need a motion to accept and place on file.
So moved.
By Councilor Cirillo, seconded by Councilor Mercia. Okay, next we have communication, reappoint Philip Shea to Lowell Housing. Need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
By Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Roll call.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Councilor Cirillo.
Yes.
Councilor Conway. Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Next, we have communication, city manager requests out-of-state travel for a member of the Lowell Police Department, a member of MIS. I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
By Councilor Cirillo, second by Councilor Noon. Roll call.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Councilor Cirillo.
Yes.
Councilor Conway. Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Okay. Next, we have votes from the city manager. Vote to endorse fiscal 20 to fiscal 24 capital plan and waive the full reading, second reading by title. Authorize the endorsement of fiscal year 2020, fiscal year 2024 proposal capital improvement plan. I need a motion to adopt by Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Cirillo. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Councilor Cirillo.
Yes.
Councilor Conway.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo. 9 yeas.
Included. Yeah. Next, we have vote to accept a gift of $1,000 from Circle Health, Lowell General Hospital to the Health Department. Waive the full reading, second reading by title. Authorize the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to accept a gift made to the city of Lowell Health Department. I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
By Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Cirillo, roll call.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a vote to authorize the city manager to execute a license agreement, Powerhouse Juice LLC, 120 Merrimack Street, sidewalk setting. Waive the full reading, second reading by title. Authorize the city manager to execute a license agreement between the City of Lowell City and Powerhouse Juice LLC for use of portions of city property adjacent to the premises at 120 Merrimack Street, Lowell, for the purpose of sidewalk seating. I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
By Councilor Cirillo, second by Councilor Conway. Roll call.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Next, we have petitions, claims, property damage, motion to refer to Law Department for report and recommendation.
So moved.
Councilor Noon, second by Councilor Cirillo. Next, we have National Grid, all right? All right, we're going to bundle 8.2 through 8.6. Need a motion to?
So moved.
So moved.
Council, second by Councilor Cirillo.
I don't know these guys. These are just the first time.
Okay.
You don't have to read them all, Bill. You just put the motion to refer to June 25th.
Okay, right now, I just need a motion to refer this to public hearing on June 25th, 2019 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Seconded.
By Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Conway.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know which one they're on, but.
Which one are you on?
Yeah. We've informed each one of them that this was just a referral and the public hearing was June 25th, so. Okay. All right.
All set?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I could just make a quick point about the 8.6, the wave guide, the request installation of cell antenna at the Pawtucket Street Bridge. I know it needs a public hearing, but I just want to make sure that the historic board or whoever needs to take a look at this is involved in it from the get-go. Because again, I don't know how a cell antenna over the Northern Canal will actually look. It may look fine, it may be fine, but I just want to, for the record, just say we should have the appropriate historic folks look at it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Yes.
One thing, through you to the manager, with these requests from National Grid again, I called up about a double pole over on Middlesex Street. I think it was 1031. There was another pole put in to support the other pole, whatever. Again, it's been there for over a year. But the damage that they did to the sidewalk, people are tripping on it now. The mailman fell the other day. Neighbors have fallen. So I gave it to Shauna. But again, the double poles are adding up again, and it's excuse after excuse, but it's becoming a mess again, so, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Elliott, you all set?
I was just going to ask, who keeps an inventory of all these antennas that are going up on the poles? I'm hoping that we do. To me, they're starting to become a little bit of I know we all need communication, but it seems like we have this company coming in and that company coming in, and they're starting to go up all over the place. Is there someone keep track of that?
We'll
Ms.
find
Manager?
out. We'll find out if there is an inventory. I mean, there should be, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
All set? Okay, we're all set then.
Yep.
All right, next, city council motions. First one by 9.2. Councilor Conway, request city manager meet with the city solicitor to develop a process to release the minutes of executive sessions for the litigation of the lawsuit of Hoot et al. Versus City of Lowell. In addition, include any documents, communication, notes, or other writings, permits, and negotiations. Second by Councilor Cirillo. Councilor Conway.
Yes, thank you. Just very briefly, I think the motion speaks for itself, and I think it's important that we develop a plan that when all this information can be released, legally and inappropriately. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councilor Milazzo?
My other comment, and again, I'm not looking to bring what's going on in Congress into the city council chambers, but at the end of the day, I think what Mr. Conway's asking for is that what we can legally bring forward as a result of open meeting, and again, it may not be other writings or notes taken by people involved in this. So again, I agree with the transparency aspect of the motion, but at the end of the day, we still fall within certain laws that we have to adhere to. Thank you.
Madam Solicitor?
Mayor?
Madam Solicitor? Go ahead. Councilor
Mr. Mayor, I think I made that clear that when it would be appropriate, obviously legally. I'm not saying release the information prior to when it's supposed to be released or the availability of it. So again, following the rules and regulations and the law, I think it's just appropriate that we make sure that we have some type of time frame, perhaps, because I think the public has asked. I know that a number of times people have mentioned that. So again, it's just to come up with some type of a time frame. Thank you.
The City Solicitor?
Sure. Just as a quick reminder, we're still waiting to hear back from the court, and so until it's formally approved, we won't be in a position to really do anything. But just so that that's sort of not so much for the council, but even out for the public, that we're not in a position to do that yet.
All set. Thank you. Next, Councilor Kennedy requires city manager provide city council with citywide yard waste pickup schedule for the summer months. Second by Councilor Cirillo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I filed this motion because I received several calls regarding the pickup. I guess the pickup schedule has changed or whatever, and some people had their yard waste out for several days without it being picked up. So I just think the motion reads to provide the city council with the citywide, but I think it's also good to put on the website what the schedule will be for the summer so that people can anticipate when it will be picked up. Maybe is it on the website?
It's
already?
on the website.
It's on the website now? Okay. Well, still, it would be good if the council got a schedule of of when that's going to happen.
Yeah, and we will obviously give you the report, put it on the website, and just so the public at home knows, we received calls as well. As you recall, we entered a new contract at the beginning of this year, and the waste management contract, both for the trash, for recycling, and for yard waste. As we've talked about many times, the price went up dramatically, certainly along the recycling. It's an increase of some $700,000. One of the issues we discussed when we were negotiating the contract was where can we achieve any type of savings. And one of the things that Waste Management suggested to us was that many communities year-round have yard waste every other week. But what they told us here in the city of Lowell, that the summer months, when they run trucks, most of the time it's half-empty trucks when they run a full run every week. There's a big demand in the spring, and there's a big demand in the fall with, yard cleanup. But in the summer, they said, they're not filling the trucks. So one of the options that we talked about in the contract and when we presented it, but I realized it was when the snow was flying and people weren't paying, perhaps paying attention, was going to this every other week during the months of June, July, and August and September, and then the first week of October 7th, going every week for picking up leaves. I think but it's a change, and people were not, it was put out on the website, it was put out on the app that people have. I know Gunther had, when he was here, was telling people and was going to groups talking about the change, but it's still a challenge to get it out to everyone. So that is the schedule. Right now, it's every other week, and I think the easier way for people to remember it is every week is trash, 1 week is recycling, and that is every other week. And The other week is your yard waste. So if you know that, but we'll certainly republish and make sure all of those schedules. We did put it back out to, I believe, all the neighborhood groups again, and did an effort through our social media to push it out because we received several phone calls. This started a few weeks ago.
Right. And I think that as long as people have a schedule and know when to put it out, that it probably will be okay.
Right.
But I do think that we have to remember that even if the trucks are just half full, that there are some properties in the city where they've got no place to put that stuff because maybe there's properties all around them. So they really have nothing. It isn't like in the suburbs where maybe you abut a wooded area and so you would have a place to dump yard waste. You don't really have that in some neighborhoods within the city. So,
but we'll get a full report.
Thank you.
Councilor Elliott?
Well, I was just going to suggest that we take up 9.7. There's a similar motion that I filed, considering we're discussing it, and we're into discussion anyway, so I don't mind just continuing with
a motion to evaluate weekly yard waste pickups.
Well, I think, yeah, so the motion was to have the city manager evaluate weekly yard pickup during July and August. I concur with Council Kennedy that we all received a fair amount of phone calls, and there are some sections of the city there's no place to put it in to let grass clippings or essentially grass clippings sit for 2 weeks. It becomes, well, it becomes I think a public health issue, or it's certainly an odor issue. So, is there any way for us to determine? I mean, myself, I mulch, so, but many of my neighbors don't. Can you let us know exactly, those areas that may have trucks? I understand it, and considering we're absorbing $700,000 in this new contract, I don't want to add another penny to it, but there are some folks that are, they do it on a weekly basis, and leaving it out on the curb or wherever it is for a couple of weeks is a little bit much for them.
I mean, this is, there is a cost savings, obviously, by doing it every other week, and that was, as I said, based on what our contractor told us. Most communities do it every other week in terms of yard waste, but we were trying it in the summer months. We can certainly reassess it after the first year and see. I mean, we'd have to amend the contract and add more money back into the contract. It's simple as that, but it's not simple, but that's what would be required. So we can certainly, assess it as we go through this season and determine, in terms of the cost savings. I will say I think the calls have kind of dropped off because in the beginning, people are calling saying they missed my pickup, and that's natural if they weren't aware that it was every other week. So, but we're going to continue to monitor it and do our best to put out, what the schedule is everywhere.
And maybe as we move forward, we look at those very densely populated neighborhoods and those routes where the trucks are not half empty, and maybe include that as part of.
Yeah, we'll look at discussion at that. And I think even in short term, Waste Management can tell us on this every other week schedule, are they seeing an overcapacity, of their trucks in certain areas? So we're going to continue to get information from them as we go through this new phase in terms of those summer months. But according to what they told us, that the spring cleanup is a big time for yards, as well as the fall cleanup, and people tend to have a lot of yard waste in those months. And in the summer, the grass isn't growing quite as much. I think one of the impacts we had here, not only was it the first a new program, but we had a very rainy spring, and a lot of people didn't get out. Both April and May, when maybe they normally would be doing yard cleanup. Some of it went very late, and they're just getting out there now because it was just raining all the time, or every weekend it rained, so the time they would have cleaned. So, it could be because of the weather. We had more of a buildup of yard waste, even late into May than normal. I don't know, but that could be one explanation, so. But we will continue to monitor it and report back to the council as to what we're hearing from Waste Management and from the residents.
All set. We have Councilor Mercia, Councilor Leahy, Councilor Noon, Councilor Conway.
Thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received many calls regarding the yard waste pickup and the policy that was rolled out without adequate notification. We got to admit it. People were outraged when they talked to me, and rightfully so. I don't think we were adequately informed. The trash calendar didn't mention it. It was not in the newspaper. Yard waste is decaying, and my streets smell like a landfill. Decaying grass is not a very pleasant smell. And I, as a city councilor, I can't speak for the rest, but I did not remember this policy was starting May 20th. I did not even know that. And I put my yard waste out as well. I had 3 barrels that just stayed there for 2 weeks. It got picked up today about 5 o'clock. But I was remembering in November when we were told of the upcoming added cost to renew the new trash contract, and I don't know if my other colleagues remember this, but I vividly remember hearing that trucks go in the summer hardly filled, but in an effort to save money, we would do it. The 2 hottest months in the summer would be reverted to every other week, which would be July and August. I did remember hearing that, so I was assuming, well, at least it's not the whole summer. And now come to find out it is the whole summer. And then because I would have never supported all summer long being without, with every other week. People are getting less and less service for their money. We are all not so lucky to call a landscaping service to haul our yard waste away. I certainly can't afford that. I cut my own grass. I put my own grass out in shrubs and branches and everything else out to the street. And the rain didn't help for the past 2 weeks when people had their bags out there on my street. I'm sure that when the guys came to pick it up, they were very, very lucky if they didn't break, and the debris and the shrubbery and branches went all over the place. But I was just wondering, as Councilor Elliott's motion says, if we could revert back to the summer. It's amazing that he should say the 2 hottest months in the summer, July and August. That's what I remembered that I heard. Maybe once we get properly notified, people will remember that it's the alternate day from the recycling. If we could have had that in advance notice, maybe we wouldn't be so upset. But I got the brunt of all this. When people called my house upset, I got letters and every other darn thing. I don't mind that. They rightfully so have a right to tell me. I, as a councilor, didn't even know it. So I don't know. I was just disappointed with the whole scenario. I don't know if we can revert it back to just the 2 months in the summer, but it seems less and less services and more money. I don't know, but that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. My only question was, when they came up with the summer months for you to consider, May 20th to October, that they kind of really widen the summer, so maybe even if we just tweaked it to the first week of June, you know what I mean? Because like you said, we got all that rain, your grass is still growing, so even if they could all, maybe they would give you 3 or 4 weeks back for the same price if we...
Well, I think they'll do what we negotiate, but there will be cost. I mean, so we can certainly go back and negotiate back in. It will be more money. I mean, as it is, the city is heavily subsidizing these contracts, whether it's, when people pay for their trash and recycling, the trash fee nowhere near covers the cost. We are subsidizing it by over $2 million a year. So the trash fee is very inadequate for what's paying. So when it's not that the resident is paying more, it's that we are paying more. So, we can certainly, that's up to the council. If the council wants to go back and renegotiate and put back in weekly service, we can, but it's not in the budget, but it will be an added cost. So I guess to answer your question, Waste Management will, if we want to say 2 months, if we want to say not at all, they'll do whatever we want, but it will cost the city budget more money. So this wasn't an effort. As I said, almost all communities do this, but if the city, wants to, we'll have to come up with more money. That's all.
Thank you.
Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. I think just about all of us, council, and I know the manager and her team received call too from resident. The major part of it is that they don't have information as to the pickup schedule. That is the major thing. And second to that is I heard too from some that want us to revert back to a weekly pickup, and they're probably not knowing that the additional costs associated with it to the city. But I do like the idea of Councilor Elliott explore possibility of going back there, and in alternative, maybe having a place where a resident, those who have a yard waste in that, they do it every week, need to be dropped off. Certainly helpful for the time being. You may be right. Going next month, maybe now that they know the schedule, be less, but just look at those possibilities, those two possibilities of looking at to see whether or not we can do it weekly, and what's the cost associated to those weekly. Second to that is that noting that the cost associated with it is a lot, then maybe there's and the need to have it weekly pickup is not there, then maybe a place where resident who would do weekly cleanup yard can drop off, and that the waste management can pick up that they do pick up yard waste. So those what I suggest to the manager, if possible, to do that. Thank you.
Councilor Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too received a number of telephone calls, and I didn't realize that either, that it was every other week. But I will say I'm going to disagree with the rainy months. April, May, and June, they've been rainy ever since I can remember. And I think it's magnified from the fact that, working over at the high school, talking to the coaches, and there were always a problem with spring sports because they were constantly being rained out. So I think that I believe Council Mercia mentioned that July and August. I can see that because those are relatively, under normal circumstances, relatively dry. But it's just a matter of, I think, pushing that up a month. Could you, what kind of monies, Madam Superintendent, was actually realized on the savings on this? Do you?
We can get that. It depended on the months. I mean, we're probably talking, to make an adjustment now, about $50,000.
No, I'm talking about when we made that switch to go to every other.
Yeah, I'll get you those figures, but it's, okay. I mean, it's probably in the range of $50,000 or so dollars. So, okay. All right. A position, so we're, again, if the desire of the council is to add back in, we can go back to Waste Management, negotiate with them. As I'm saying, it's just going to cost more money.
No, and I realize that, here we are been talking about the budget and trying to, it's a lean budget, and there's not a lot of money floating around. And I can, I applaud you and your team trying to find out ways of saving some money. But again, maybe the compromise is to push that up to July and August because
Yeah, we can come back with, we can ask Waste Management with a couple of different price structures and come back and.
Because I think, again, what was, I know that I put the grass clippings in bags and it rained every other day and they were, needless to say, they fell apart. So it becomes a bit of a mess. And the smell is kind of tough too. So anyways, thank you.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think at best people cut their grass once a week. So if you pick the grass up every other week, then that's 2 cuts. And that's all it is. You just put 2 cuts in a container or a bag or whatever. I don't think it's that big a deal. I really think the issue was really not about the frequency that the clippings are being picked up, but rather that people weren't aware of the schedule change. And I think that, and beyond that, to do anything now this year I think is unreasonable. It's June 11th. By the time we were able to switch over to pick it up every week during June and get the word out to people, we'd be in July and back to and so we'd be going through the whole thing again. So I think we're probably best just to get the word out, leave things the way they are for now, and maybe reevaluate it in September, and see how it is then. But I really don't think it's that outrageous that we're picking up yard waste every other week rather than every week at a cost savings of maybe $700,000 or so. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Councilor.
I don't agree with what he said. I don't. I get 3 barrels every week. I cut my grass every week. I have to do it every other week. I can do that. It isn't just my grass. I trim my hedges, I trim the trees, I trim the bushes. I do a lot of work around my property. I don't have the luxury of having a landscaper come and do it. I happen to enjoy it. It's my physical, mental therapy, and I enjoy it. So you can speak what you believe in, but you're not at my house, so it's different there.
Any further discussion? Okay.
I had a person that called my house and had 8 barrels in front of his house, combination of barrels and bags, 8 of them. And he said, "How long am I going to leave this here?" I said, "I don't know." So, I could have said, "Well, how did you get 8 bags?" But he had 8 bags.
All right. Thank you. Next, here by Councilor Mercia. Request City Manager have property department install no loitering, no trespassing. Police take notice sign on city-owned property at 20 Favorite Street. And your second by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion speaks for itself. The police have no teeth with that building because there are no signs, and it's just, I can't even begin to explain what we see in the DPW working across the street in the South Common, see what's going on there. It would be, I just can't even tell you, but we need these signs to give teeth to the police department. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilor Cirillo, request City Manager of Property Department have the Lowell Canal Waters Cleaners find a place for compostable yard waste and also pick up day-to-day debris that the volunteers pick up out of the canals. Need a second by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Cirillo.
Yes, the Lowell Canal Water Cleaners, they're doing the city a wonderful service by cleaning the canals, and I'm just asking for possibly someone from the proper department to just work with them in their efforts. Thanks.
Okay. Next by Councilor Cirillo, have the proper department work with the Lowell Arts community to paint the hopscotch game on the sidewalks near our parks, playgrounds. Second, Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Cirillo.
Hi, yes. I had looked at this months and months and months ago, and it was a video of the hopscotch experiment, and they drew colorful hopscotch board on the sidewalk in Seattle, and it was used by everyone, construction workers, children, and families. And so then all of a sudden I see on one of the Lowell websites, sites, that someone had posted a photo of someone drawing hopscotch, and then I saw someone post the video from Lowell and said, "Oh, please, can we do this?" And so I'm going to read some of the, just really quickly, some of the comments. It's a great idea. That's great. Everyone's participating and smiling. Love it. It's brilliant. Anyone can do it. Just need some time and chalk. And that's awesome. Lowell could have something like that. It's a great idea. And these are all Lowell residents. Yes, petition Lowell to do them throughout the city. Just do it. I've chalked downtown. Yes, I would totally do this. So I know that there's the washable sidewalk chalk paint, and basically I know that when I've set up the Lowell Kinetic Sculpture Race, we set up games for the children, games for adults, Jenga and Connect Four. And then when I helped clean up the Lowell Folk Festival to take it down, we had games. We had Connect Four, and we had... So I figured this would be something wonderful that maybe we could do during our festivals, or even just at some point throughout the city. I think it's fun and it's simple, and I think it would bring a little something added to the city. Thanks.
Just bear with me. For myself, city manager instruct proper department look into traffic alert protocol to alert residents of roadwork, street closures, as well as major events that may impact the traffic of the city. I need a second by Councilor Noon. I just want to, actual incident, over a week ago, they had the, at the auditorium, the citizens'
Naturalization.
Naturalization process. And there were a number of other issues. I got caught in the traffic there, and it took me from my house at least an hour and 10 minutes to get to City Hall. I talked to several other people who had doctor's appointments, got caught in the same thing. So there's no easy answer to this. But I'm wondering, Madam Manager, if we can develop an app for the city, or is there a way in the like a daily notice out to people what is going on at the auditorium, the Songus Arena, Lasher Park, what roads are being closed? Because that's what's causing some days where it's just very difficult to get through the city. So I'm looking at those particular days when something like that happens. Or if there's a process where we know there's going to be excessive use of areas where the police might be put out in certain areas at key traffic times to move the traffic along. It's just one of those things. There's no easy answer, but there are points where this city just locks up, and see what we can do about that. So thank you. Any announcements? Councilor Leahy?
No, your motion. When we do these big events, why aren't they required to have a police officer, like at the auditorium? That would help out tremendously. I thought there's got to be a policy if you're holding a big event like that. Aren't you required to have?
Well, there usually is, whether it's at the arena or the auditorium, there usually is a requirement that they have detail. I'm not certain whether, they had one for the naturalization or not, but.
How many do they have of those a year? Because it seems like there's one like every month or something.
Oh, no, maybe once or twice a year. It's not that often.
Seems frequent. Every day you keep getting backed up in that traffic.
Well,
I think
not
sometimes-
events, I meant just that one.
But I understand what you're saying, because I think what's happening in some cases, they're just monitoring traffic, walking traffic rather than vehicles.
Well, that's part of the problem. Everybody's walking out, letting people out, and it's chaos. But, okay, thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Yep.
By Councilor Cirillo, second by Councilor Noon.
Good night.